Chapter 319. In the era of the Arcane Kingdom, the ancient evils belonged to the most dangerous type of enemy. What was more dangerous than them were the abominations and the ancient abominations. The abominations were simply the children of the gods who died prematurely. The more powerful the life, the more difficult it was to have children. The children of the gods were born as gods, so it was more difficult to be born. The abominations were the children of the gods who died before they were born. There were also some abominations that were born from the corpses of the gods, but no matter which kind, they were very dangerous. Because they died prematurely, these abominations hated all life, and even hated the whole world. Every abomination had endless hatred. Although the abominations were not gods, they still had many godlike powers, which made all the abominations very powerful. As for the Archean abominations, these monsters lived in the same period as the ancient gods. In the knowledge of wizards, there was a special database for each Archean abomination. Of course, that database only recorded the Archean abominations that had been discovered. The most famous one was the abomination dragon. In the information of the dragon of hatred, there was a description: the abominations left over from the ancient times. They are the general name of a group of powerful creatures left over from the era ruled by the dragons. The dragon of hatred is the strongest among them. The oldest dragon of hatred can easily destroy everything, including the gods. Even other creatures of hatred are afraid of them. At present, the known dragons of hatred were the illusionary dragon of the color dragons, the Hui dragon of the metal dragons, the blue diamond dragon of the gem dragons, the stardust dragon of the spirit dragons, and the 38 pterosaur of the iguana dragons. In fact, the difference between the legendary dragons and the dragon of hatred was not big. The legendary dragons of the ancient dragon era were not weaker than the dragon of hatred, such as the time dragon of the ancient dragon era. In addition to the dragon of hatred, there were also centimanes, hydra, typhon, and so on. None of these monsters were easy to deal with. Since entering the era of the new gods, the abominations and the ancient abominations rarely appeared. Occasionally, some of the ancient abominations that appeared were sealed or exiled after paying a huge price. Su Len killed the last demonic eye monster that had surrounded him. He shook his sword lightly to get rid of the dark brown blood on it. These monsters were not very powerful. The only troublesome thing was that the demonic eyes that had grown to maturity could use energy rays to attack. It was a kind of ray filled with corrosive and death energy. Su Len guessed that these energy rays were likely to have the property of instant death. Instant death spells had a very disgusting ability, which was that they had a certain chance of directly killing the enemy. Among them, the most representative was the Angel of Death. This kind of monster that lived in the bottomless abyss was born with the ability to cast the gaze of death. In other words, it was the legendary ability to impregnate anyone it glared at. Of course, the instant death rate of this kind of spell was very low, about 1 in 1,000. Of course, if the level difference between the caster and the target was too big, the success rate would also increase. In addition, there were many factors such as divinity, the opponent's physique, and so on. The wizard's finger of death spell was said to be a spell that imitated the gaze of death. These demonic eye monsters in front of him had a similar disgusting ability. Although the probability was very low, when there were enough of them, the quantitative change would lead to a qualitative change. If Su Len was unlucky and really bumped into them, he would not even be able to cry. Arcane Missile. Biu. A series of arcane missiles shot out, directly turning the demonic eye monster that dared to sneak attack into a sieve. Su Len piled the bodies of these monsters together, then took out a special die used to assist in the release of fireball, and directly ignited the bodies of these monsters. Although these monsters' bodies were already dead, they were still very polluting. The simplest way to deal with them was to burn them. After cleaning up these monsters, Su Len continued to move deeper into the canyon. Soon, he found a lot of human remains. These corpses were badly damaged, and there were many badly damaged swords and equipment scattered around. According to the information Su Len had obtained, these people had died at most a week ago. It was very likely that the surrounding fog had caused them to become like this. Damn it, why is there a monster here? Fortunately, I found it early. If I had waited for it to grow slowly, it might have become an evil creature, and then it would be even harder to clean up. Sulen pursed his lips. The most disgusting thing about monsters was their corruption, pollution, and rapid evolution. As long as there was enough flesh and blood, it wouldn't take long for an ordinary monster to transform into an evil creature. Of course, it was still very difficult for an evil creature to transform into an ancient evil creature, but it was still very fast compared to other creatures. It seems that I still need to send more people to investigate the surrounding area in the future. This time, I was lucky to find it. If I hadn't found it and given them enough time to grow, the losses would have been great. Sulen calculated in his heart. Bang! There was a loud noise. Sulen's figure flashed, and he ran toward the place where the sound came from. After passing through the mist, he immediately saw the figure of the Magus from before. However, the Magus seemed to be in a sorry state. There were a few corpses of demon-eyed corpses scattered on the ground. There were also 2 monsters that looked like mountains of flesh. There were more than 20 eyes of various sizes on the mountains of flesh. These monsters could make a person's sanity level drop by just looking at them. However, at this time, the 2 monsters had become a pile of mud, and the wizard's face had become a little pale. Obviously, this guy was not doing well. Sulen looked at him and said, "You're not in a good condition now. It's better to leave this place as soon as possible." The wizard did not answer. Instead, he took out a bottle of potion and raised his head to drink it. "Can you solve the problem here? You should have seen those monsters. They are monsters. If we don't get rid of them as soon as possible, they will grow into evil creatures, and we will be in big trouble." Sulen looked at the wizard with a little surprise. He never thought that as a selfish wizard, there would be someone who would sacrifice himself to save the world. "Don't look at me like that. The monsters in this canyon were originally sealed by the wizard school I belonged to. Since the day the school was established, we have made an oath to seal this monster forever. Although thousands of years have passed, and the school I belong to has withered to this point, the responsibility on our shoulders does not allow us to retreat. For some people, an oath was more important than their lives. It was very sacred, and many oaths had magical powers. The most typical example was the monk. The commandments they followed were actually a kind of oath. This wizard in front of him had made an oath to seal the monsters in this canyon. Sulen put away his long sword and said slowly, "Can you still fight? Let's work together to clear out the monsters here." "You?" The wizard looked at Sulen suspiciously. Sulen did not mind. "Let me introduce myself. My name is Sulen, the Lord of the Northern Town." "You are the Lord of the Northern Town?" the wizard said with a surprised face. "Let's go." Sulen did not answer. He took the lead and walked into the canyon. "Oh, right. What's your name?" "Lorraine Anders." Sulen chose to go with Lorraine not only because he wanted to help her, but more importantly, Lorraine knew about the monsters sealed in this canyon. She must know more about the situation here than Sulen. With Lorraine's help, things would be easier. Sulen originally thought that there was a monster here, but now it seemed that there was a big monster sealed in here. The monster was at most a small boss. The monster was sealed in the deepest part of the canyon. As they continued to move forward, they encountered more and more monsters. However, these monsters could not resist Sulen at all. The lightning wrapped around Sulen's weapon easily electrocuted all the monsters into ashes. Even the Flesh Mountain monster eyes were hit by Sulen's lightning spear as soon as they appeared. In the deepest part of the canyon, there were many traces of corrosion on the ground. This was the sign that the sealed monster's power was corroding outwards. Screech. A sharp sound was heard. The energy barrier in front of Sulen flickered a few times, and then with a bang, it shattered like glass. Sulen felt a sharp pain in his brain. Soul howl. At this moment, sharp spikes suddenly shot out from the ground, trying to pierce through Sulen. Sulen suddenly felt a sense of danger. Although his brain was in pain, his body instinctively dodged, and he just happened to dodge the spikes. At the same time, he summoned a lightning spear and threw it at the ground. The ground shook, and then a large amount of black blood gushed out. "Be careful, this is a corrupted prowler." Sullen's brain quickly recovered from the pain, and he did not stop. He quickly threw out a few lightning spears. Seeing that Su Len was fine, Lorraine breathed a sigh of relief and said, "The soul howl just now must have been caused by that evil creature. We made a mistake in our judgment. That monster has transformed into an evil creature." The main target of the soul howl just now was not him, but he was also affected. Su Len was unharmed, but Lorraine's wizard robe was pierced, and his body was injured. "Evil creature? That's even better." Su Len grinned, and then took out the purple dragon halberd. In the depths of the canyon was a huge crypt, filled with chaotic, corrupt energy. As soon as the two of them stepped into the cave, a large number of devil-eyed corpses and demonic eyes of flesh appeared before them. Next, they furiously attacked the two of them. Tens of negative energy beams shot out in an instant. Su Luan's face sank and he instantly stuck close to the wall to hide behind a protruding rock. Lorraine's reaction was just as fast. With a flash of light, Lorraine's figure disappeared from the prime material world, and entered a crack in the dimensional space. A large number of negative energy beams hit the rock, but it was a pity that the rock was not alive, and only some fragments fell off. Chapter 320. Su Len didn't dare to take the risk of being killed by dozens of negative energy rays. He could only dodge for a while, but he soon came up with a solution. Roar! War roar! A loud sound came from Su Luan's mouth in an instant. This kind of sonic attack exploded in the narrow cave and its power was even stronger. The sound waves reverberated throughout the cave and the sound was deafening. A wave of sonic attack was like a tidal wave. The demon-eyed corpses that were originally gathered together were cut down in rows by this sonic attack as if they were grass. If one looked closely, they would see a large amount of black blood spurting out from the eyes, mouth, and ears of these monsters. In fact, their brains had been shattered into paste by the sound wave attack just now. A wave of clearing. Su Len was relieved. He felt a little uncomfortable from the wave of attack just now. After all, sound waves couldn't distinguish between friend and foe. "Did you do this?" Lorraine came out of the dimensional crevice and looked at Su Luan in shock. Not far away, there were hundreds of monster corpses lying on the ground in disarray. "Who else could it be other than me?" Su Len glared at this guy. He wasn't very powerful, but his ability to escape was top-notch. That spell just now, even if there was a nuclear explosion here, it wouldn't affect him at all. Of course, this kind of spell had a counter, such as spacetime shield and dimensional anchor, which were specially designed to deal with this kind of escape spell. Lorraine pretended not to see and pointed at the depths of the cave. "Let's go. Let's quickly get rid of the thing inside and then seal it. If we delay too long, that monster will break out of the seal and we'll all be in trouble." A large number of strange sarcomas appeared on the ground in front of them. These sarcomas looked like hearts, beating very rhythmically. There was also a slippery carpet on the ground around them, which looked very disgusting. Seeing this, Lorraine said with a serious expression, "This is an evil creature hatching monsters." Chain of fireballs. Bursting flames. Lorraine waved the staff in his hand, and in the next second, a dazzling light appeared. Fireballs flew past one after another, and a dull explosion sounded. Scorching flames rose up, and the air was filled with a burning smell. The carpet on the ground quickly withered and died. The sarcomas were burned into charcoal by the flames, and there were traces of melting on the ground. "Be careful. Do you want to be buried alive?" Su Len said as he patted the falling stones. Using an explosive spell like fireball in this kind of underground environment was a test of the cave's structure. If they weren't careful, the cave wouldn't be able to withstand it and would collapse. At that time, the two of them would be buried alive. It's too late. That evil creature is mass-producing monsters. "We don't have time to waste," Lorraine said anxiously. "Let me know the next time you cast a spell, so I can dodge it first." Sulen glanced at him, and quickly rushed through the cave where the ground was still hot. A thick smell of blood came from the cave, and a huge blood pool appeared in front of them. It was about the size of a basketball court, filled with a viscous liquid that looked like fresh blood. In the middle of the blood pool, a huge meatball with a diameter of 3 meters was beating rhythmically. Tentacles like blood vessels went deep into the blood pool, transferring all kinds of energy to the meatball. Purple veins bulged on the meatball, and in the middle of the meatball, a humanoid creature was rapidly growing. This was an evil creature that was evolving. This kind of evil creature would create all kinds of monsters, and then use these monsters to collect all kinds of nutrients for itself. Finally, after receiving a lot of nutrients, the evil creature would continue to evolve into an ancient evil creature. Of course, the evil creature in front of them wasn't evolving into an ancient evil creature. There weren't enough animals and humans around for it to devour. If it wanted to evolve from an evil creature to an ancient evil creature, it would need at least a few 100,000 people. There weren't enough animals around the Sierra de Lotus for it to evolve. The evil creature in front of them sensed danger and changed from its incubation state to its combat state. However, it changed a little too late, and the two just happened to bump into it. Lightning spear. Sulen reached out his hand, and dazzling lightning appeared in his hand. A spear made completely of lightning energy appeared in his hand. Compared to the lightning spear before, Sulen's was more powerful this time. A huge amount of lightning energy was compressed into the spear. The spear emitted a violent aura, as if it was going to explode in the next second. Even the meatball in the middle of the blood pool sensed danger. A large amount of energy was quickly extracted from the blood pool, and the meatball shook even more violently. Go! The lightning spear turned into a ray of light, and instantly hit the meatball in the middle of the blood pool. Boom! Dazzling lightning instantly exploded, and the entire blood pool was shrouded in lightning energy. The flesh and blood turned into charcoal in an instant, and a large amount of blood evaporated. The original meatball exploded under this attack. However, such a serious attack didn't kill the transforming evil creature. After the meatball exploded, the half-transformed evil creature gave up on its perfect state, and ended its evolution prematurely. The lightning energy wreaked havoc on its body, and the evil creature's body was charred black. However, the charred areas were quickly covered by new flesh and blood, and the evil creature's injuries began to recover quickly. What tenacious vitality! Seeing this, Sulen flipped his hand, and the purple dragon halberd appeared. In the next second, his body was shrouded in dazzling lightning, and countless lightning energy appeared around him. Sulen was like the god of thunder, and directly rushed toward the evil creature. The flesh and blood around the evil creature was quickly withering, and its body was quickly recovering. Sulen's body was like lightning, and he instantly passed through the blood pool. The purple dragon halberd stabbed out with endless lightning. Puff! A dull sound was heard, as if a balloon had been pierced. The purple dragon halberd and the crescent halberd next to it stabbed into the evil creature's body. A large amount of lightning energy instantly poured into the evil creature's body. After a short moment of silence, there was an explosion. The whole body of the evil creature burst open in an instant. A large amount of purple-black liquid burst out in all directions, and the surrounding flesh and blood quickly withered at this moment. With a flash of lightning, Sulen's figure appeared on the edge of the blood pool. His body was surrounded by lightning, and all the flesh and blood near him were electrocuted into a mass of charcoal. In Sulen's hand, there was a huge head, and in the middle of the head was a terrifying eyeball. It was the evil creature's head, and its body had been completely turned into nothingness by Sulen's attack. Soul extraction. Soul-sucking technique. After seeing the evil creature, Lorraine's staff shot out a purple light. Ah! A mournful scream was heard, and the sound seemed to be able to penetrate the soul. In reality, this was an illusion. The evil creature was already in a soul state, so it couldn't make a sound. However, this evil creature's soul was very powerful, and it had reached a level where it could interfere with reality. The evil creature's soul was pulled out without any resistance. It was a huge mountain of flesh, and its body was covered with tentacles and eyes. Looking at it made one's scalp tingle. A large amount of souls rushed out of the mountain of flesh, and in the blink of an eye, the mountain of flesh shrank at a speed visible to the naked eye. Finally, a strange ball of flesh with a dense evil aura appeared in front of them, and in the next second, it was sealed in a gem by a ray of light. The souls that regained their freedom instantly woke up. They calmly said something to the two of them, and then under the guidance of a strange force, they turned into countless fluorescent lights and disappeared. Ding ding dang dang. A messy sound was heard, and gray soul crystals fell to the ground. Although they couldn't hear the voices of the souls, from the shape of their mouths, it seemed like they were saying thank you. These souls were lucky. They hadn't been digested by the evil creature yet. If Sulen came a few days later, these souls would have been digested by the evil creature. Sulen looked around and saw about a dozen gray soul crystals on the ground. This level of soul crystal could be used in many experiments. It was a good material. Here you go, these are your spoils of war. A gem was thrown over. Sulen raised his hand and caught it. He opened his hand and saw that it was the gem that imprisoned the evil creature's soul. It's a pity that it's not a legendary rank, but it's still a top-quality soul crystal. Sulen nodded at him and played with it for a while. Then he put it away. Oh right, you rest first. I'll repair the seal here. He didn't even need to do anything in the battle just now. Sulen had taken care of the evil creature. This evil creature was very difficult to deal with for wizards below the legendary rank. It had powerful recovery abilities and many attacks. It would take a long time to kill it. However, Sulen could kill it in one round. Lorraine was shocked by Sulen's power. Soon, he found the seal rune circle in the cave. At this point, many of the runes on the circle were damaged. Many places were corroded by the corrosive energy, and a powerful polluting energy kept leaking out. On the rune circle, a pale golden light was fighting against the corrosive energy. It was because of this energy that the polluting evil energy didn't continue to expand. This energy was absorbed by the fungus and transferred to the evil creature. It was because of this that the evil creature was able to transform into an evil creature so quickly. Lorraine took out some silver metal and summoned a flame to melt it. He then added some other materials. Finally, a silver liquid with a strange glow began to flow down the rune circle. The damaged area was quickly repaired. The corroded area once again flashed with a golden spirit light. The golden spirit light quickly expanded, completely dispelling and suppressing the corrosive energy in the surroundings. Done. Where are you going next? You still haven't decided? Do you want to come to North Town City? I'm going to build, sure. Chapter 321. Seeing that Lorraine agreed, Sulen felt that things seemed to be going too smoothly. What? Are you surprised that I agreed so easily? Lorraine laughed. Indeed, Sulen said. Lorraine shrugged and said helplessly, Sir, wizards also need to eat. The materials to strengthen the seal cost about 300,000 kinner. I'm broke now. Another wizard who doesn't know how to manage money. Congratulations, host. You have successfully recruited a hero. Lorraine Anders, loyalty, 78 profession, wizard alchemist rank, high-grade wizard strength, 12 agility, 10 will, 26 vitality, 17 charm, 15 characteristics, talent elemental affinity, strengthened will, spellcasting exemption, focus, calm, talent for magic, lightning reflex skills, magic trick, mage hand, illuminate, hypnosis, charm person, arcane missile, grease, shield, featherfall, web, burning hand, acid arrow, invisibility, scorching ray, protective arrow, bull's strength, cat's grace, bear's endurance, chain lightning, rune craft abilities, proficient spellcasting, silent spellcasting, magic penetration, talent for magic, spell proficiency, spell enhancement, battle spellcasting weapon proficiency, sword weapon 80, staff technique 103 employment salary, 20,000 kinnar per month. He looked at Lorraine's attributes. She was a grade 3 wizard. Her attributes weren't outstanding, but they weren't bad either. However, wizards were a rare profession, so 20,000 kinar per month wasn't cheap. The battle is over. You have successfully killed the evil creature, Magic Eye Aberration. You have won a glorious victory. You have completed the random mission, Broken Seal. You have successfully avoided a city destruction. You have received a buff, Blessing of the God of Craftsmen. You have received a golden chest. Congratulations, host. You have successfully killed the evil creature, Magic Eye Aberration. You have received 11,200 EXP. You have received a golden chest. You have received Flesh Essence X2. Blessing of the Smith God, special buff. Increases the construction speed of the city after use. Buildings have a chance to acquire better attributes. Effect lasts for 1 month. Construction speed increased by 200%. After seeing the attributes of this buff, Su Len immediately decided to use it on the Northern Fortress City. 1 month was enough for the Northern Fortress City to finish building the city wall. Even the main structure of the Wizard Tower was almost done. However, when Su Len chose to use it, the system notified him that he needed to return to Northern Town to use it. Flesh Essence, the power extracted from the life and flesh of the demonic eye aberration. Using it can speed up regeneration and increase lifespan. However, because it is made of evil, it will increase the chances of bloodline aberration and cause slight contamination to the body. It can be reused. Note, reusing it will double the chances of bloodline aberration and contamination. Increases lifespan by 10 to 15 years. Permanent +3 recovery speed after use. Chance to obtain regeneration talent. Chance of bloodline mutation increased by 3%. Pollution +1, the flesh essence looked like 2 red gems. It contained a powerful life force. It was obvious that this was not an ordinary item. After looking at the attributes of the flesh essence, Su Len was a little hesitant. This thing could increase lifespan, but the side effects were also very strong. 3% chance of mutation and contamination. He didn't want to become as ugly as the aberrations he killed. Bloodline mutation was irreversible. However, he could ask Hathaway to try and see if it could be made into a potion to reduce or eliminate the side effects. In fact, the best thing to increase lifespan was the Fountain of Life. It had no side effects and increased lifespan by a lot. It also had other benefits. Unfortunately, Su Len couldn't even find the Fountain of Youth, let alone the Fountain of Life. However, even with this disadvantage, the flesh essence was still a very rare treasure. As long as he was willing to sell it, many people would be willing to take the risk of becoming a flesh aberration to use it. In addition to these things, Su Len also obtained 2 gold chests, some low-level soul crystals, and a high-level soul crystal. Su Len opened the storage space and opened the 2 gold chests. With a flash of inspiration, a system prompt sounded in Su Len's ears. Congratulations, you have opened a gold chest. You have received 3 skill points. Congratulations, you have opened a gold chest. You have received a treasure, Moon Dew. Moon Dew, dew condensed from absorbing moonlight energy. It has a magical effect. It can purify the energy in the body and slightly increase elemental affinity. The Moon Dew was stored in a palm-sized crystal bottle. Through the crystal bottle, one could clearly see the silver-white liquid shining with moonlight. There was about 50 milliliters inside. After opening the chests, Su Len and Lorraine checked the surroundings. After making sure there were no more survivors, they burned all the corpses and used mud to rock to seal the cave. Only then did they walk out of the canyon. At this time, the fog in the canyon had dispersed. However, the black rocks and the ground didn't change at all. Su Len didn't change much either. He could only wait for nature to slowly adjust itself. Other than the druids, only the priests of the goddess of nature could deal with this kind of pollution. However, it would still take a lot of time and effort. Moreover, there were some places that were so polluted that even the druids and priests couldn't evolve. On the way back, Su Len didn't let the Pegasus fly. After all, Lorraine's flying spell was too slow and he didn't have any magic items that could help him fly. He couldn't keep up with the Pegasus' speed at all. Sulan didn't have a special hobby of sleeping with men. Naturally, he wouldn't bring him along. Therefore, they could only walk slowly. Luckily, Lorraine could summon a mount. Although it wasn't as fast as the Pegasus, it was still much faster than a normal horse. After the end of the Orc War, the northern city became more and more prosperous. There was an endless stream of caravans at the city gate every day. A melodious camel bell rang. A caravan from the Desert Kingdom was entering the city. The northern city didn't collect entrance taxes now. However, the caravans that came to trade had to pay taxes in the market before they could trade. Of course, they also had to pay taxes when they bought the goods. This way, they actually collected taxes twice. Even so, there were still many caravans that came to trade. After all, the other lords collected more taxes. Also, there were many good things that couldn't be found anywhere else in Sulen. The Desert Kingdom was rich in all kinds of preserved and dried fruits, such as dates, walnuts, raisins, and all kinds of enchanting female slaves. The female slaves of the Desert Kingdom were very popular in kingdoms such as Florence. Many taverns would buy a few on purpose. Sullen's eyes wandered around the graceful bodies of the female slaves. Then, he looked away reluctantly. He planned to buy a group of dancers in the Lord's castle. The dancers of the Desert Kingdom were very good at belly dancing. Lorraine was astonished by the prosperity of the city after he entered the city. He did not expect such a prosperous city to exist in the northern wasteland. What surprised him even more was that there were several magic buildings in the city. Wasn't it a little too exaggerated? There was also the wizard tower that was under construction. Was this a wizard tower? That was the extent of the floating space tower. When he saw that the wizard tower was still under construction, Lorraine was already thinking about what to do after he took control of the wizard tower. However, before he could think of a name for the wizard tower, he looked up and saw a few female spellcasters walking towards him. What surprised him even more was that these spellcasters had a higher level than him. "My name is Lorraine. I'm an advanced wizard of the North Wind sect." It's a sect, but in fact, I'm the only wizard left in this generation. Originally, I thought I would die in the fight against the evil, but a legendary strongman came to help me complete the seal and invited me. I agreed. What I didn't expect was that I would become the chief wizard of the northern city. In the end, I became an ordinary wizard in the northern city. The whole wizard team had one chief wizard, 3 team leaders, and 1 ordinary member. Sulan didn't care about Lorraine's self-pity. He directly threw him into the laboratory to train the apprentices. Then, he took Hathaway to another laboratory. "This time I got something special. See if you can use it." "What is it?" Hathaway's eyes lit up. She stared straight at Sulan. She knew very well that Sulan often had some precious magic materials in his hands. Sulan took out 2 pieces of flesh essence from the storage space. "That's it. Take a look first." Hathaway looked at the 2 pieces of ruby-like flesh essence in surprise. What a rich life force. This is a strange thing that can increase one's lifespan. However, there's also a dark force entangled in it. The side effects should be severe if you use it directly. Yes, this is flesh essence. It's obtained from killing the magic eye aberration. It can increase one's lifespan by 10 to 15 years. However, there's a chance that it will cause the flesh to be aberrated, and this kind of thing is contaminated. See if you can make it into a potion to remove the side effects. If you can't remove it, then try to minimize the side effects as much as possible. Hathaway picked up the flesh essence. A light flashed on her finger. After a while, she slowly exhaled. The dark force isn't too serious. I'll give it a try. Oh, right. There's also this. Sulan handed Mundu to Hathaway. This is Mundu? Yes. Great. Hathaway took the crystal bottle and said, "If I only had a 30% chance of success before, now I have at least a 70% chance." Moon dew has such a great effect? Moon dew is said to be a gift from the Silver Moon Lady. It's a rare material specially used to purify the dark force. Hathaway shook the crystal bottle and said, "The Silver Moon Lady and the Dark Lady are sworn enemies. The power of the Silver Moon can purify the dark force." Chapter 322. Hathaway closed the lab after she got the flesh essence and moon dew. It was very difficult to make such high-level magic potions. She needed a better environment. The construction of the northern battlefront city was still going on. During this time, there were some refugees who came here with the caravans to look for opportunities. The population of the northern battlefront city had been slowly increasing. Since the army often went out for training and captured many monsters as slaves, the labor shortage in the northern battlefront city was slightly filled. After arriving at the northern battlefront city, Sulen inspected the various construction sites. The fastest progress was the third phase of the northern battlefront city. The residential area and the city wall were mostly completed. The wizard tower was also built to the second floor. It would take some time to complete it. If the city and the city wall were completed, the wizard tower would be built much faster. As for the mathematical Olympiad garden, the materials were almost ready. Moreover, he had captured many slaves during this time. He still had a lot of manpower. As long as he wanted to, he could start immediately. After inspecting all the construction sites, Sulen opened the system panel and chose to use the Blessing of the Craftsman God buff. An invisible light flashed from Sulen's body. Then, a strange energy swept across the entire northern battlefront city. Outside the northern battlefront city, in the Wisdom Temple, the Wisdom Priest was praying. At this moment, he suddenly felt a strange energy spreading out from the center of the city. It quickly enveloped the entire city. This energy is God's power? A deity has blessed this city. Wei Na looked at the sky in shock. At the same time, the priests of the other churches also felt the same way. At this moment, these priests were all wondering which God had sent a miracle. It seems like we have to change our attitude toward that Lord. Wei Na thought to herself when she felt the God's power in the sky. A Lord with a God as his backer also had great power. It was completely different from a normal Lord. Sulen didn't know that his Blessing of the Craftsman God buff had caused the churches to misunderstand that he had a God behind him. However, even if he knew, he wouldn't clarify it. Sometimes, hiding things like this would make the other party believe him more. With the use of Blessing of the Craftsman God, the construction speed of the various construction sites in northern town city began to increase. The efficiency had increased by a few times. None of the workers were lazy anymore. All kinds of construction were completed quickly under the guidance of the craftsmen. The work that would have originally taken 3 months could now be completed in 1 month. The fastest progress was the city wall and the residential area in the market. According to the original schedule, it could be completed in a month. Now it seemed that the city wall and the residential area would be completed in 10 days at most. In northern battlefront city, the city walls and residential buildings took up almost half of the manpower. If these people were freed up, the construction of other buildings in northern battlefront city would progress even faster. At the same time, the Arcane Garden was also under construction. The Arcane Garden was built using a lot of stones. There were all kinds of fountains, flower beds, and statues in the garden. Sulen had transferred a lot of master sculptors to work on the garden. At the same time, he also drew water from the underground veins to form the fountains. While the construction of the Arcane Garden was going on, the third phase of the northern citadel was finally completed. Sturdy city wall. This is a sturdy city wall. It has high resistance to all kinds of attacks. Despair when faced with a city wall like this. Sturdy plus 40, defense bonus plus 38, attack range plus 35, impregnable plus 37, tall and majestic plus 36, stability plus 38, comfortable residential house. Clean and tidy houses make people happy and can provide a sense of belonging to the people. Comfort plus 21, indestructible plus 26, tidy plus 24, people's allegiance plus 25, peaceful living plus 25, population growth plus 20, security plus 23. Su Len was very satisfied with the attributes of the city wall and residential buildings. After the construction was completed, a lot of manpower was released. Su Len assigned half of them to the construction of the Wizard Tower, and the other half to the construction site of the Arcane Garden. The Arcane Garden required a lot of stones to be built. According to the blueprint of the Arcane Garden, this building was supposed to be 30 meters above the ground. There were all kinds of canals on top of it to transport water from the fountain to various places. Su Len planned to place the Fountain of Vitality at the very top of the Arcane Garden. It had not been built yet. All kinds of materials were quickly transported over from the northern citadel. The foundation of the garden was completed in just a few days. Apart from the foundation, the Arcane Garden also needed to bury many energy channels. Fortunately, the crystals on the crystal beasts in the Arcane Garden had matured. These magic crystals would all be used to create energy channels. At the same time, a large runic array was also being constructed. Apart from Hathaway, the other adepts came to the Arcane Garden to help with the construction. Fortunately, the Arcane Garden's runic array was not very difficult to construct. The most important part of this runic array was the Elementium core. After the runic array was completed, the Arcane Garden began to build all kinds of platforms and stairs. This step required a lot of stone. It was also the most arduous part of the entire project. After all, the development of civilization in this world was still in the middle world. Piling up large amounts of stone could only be done with crude tools and manpower. Fortunately, there were a dozen large hunchbacked beasts in the northern citadel. These hunchbacked beasts were very suitable for moving large amounts of stone. The construction of the Arcane Garden went very smoothly because all the materials had been prepared beforehand. Su Len could finally breathe a sigh of relief during this period of time. The Arcane Garden's construction time was tight. Su Len planned to complete it in a month. In truth, if it weren't for the spellcasters and the blessing of the god of crafts, buff, it would take at least half a year to construct such a magnificent structure, even with 30 to 40,000 people working on it. Currently, there were already more than 50,000 workers in the Arcane Garden. For some reason, the temples in the northern citadel had also expressed their willingness to provide some manpower to help with the construction. The 7 temples had each provided 2 spellcasters and 100 craftsmen. With the addition of these people, the construction of the Arcane Garden sped up again. Other than the Arcane Garden, the construction of the Wizard Tower also sped up. Hathaway had made 2 gargoyles and golems. During this period of time, more than 30,000 workers and even more monster slaves were working on various construction projects. The main body of the Wizard Tower was not difficult to construct. Most of the time, it was difficult to transport materials. After all, in this era, it was not easy to transport materials up to a tower that was dozens of meters tall. In order to speed up the construction of the Wizard Tower, Su Luen temporarily suspended the repair work of the Secret Realm. He called the Harpies from the Secret Realm to come to the Wizard Tower to help. The construction of the Wizard Tower was very boring. It didn't need to carve the rocks and consider all kinds of art styles like the Arcane Garden. The Wizard Tower was like building blocks. It was slowly stacked in a fixed shape. The Wizard Tower required a large amount of obsidian. This work required a lot of obsidian. This work required stone to mud to fuse the materials that originally did not want to be fused together. Next, stone to mud would be used to turn the soft materials into hard stones. Then, it was necessary to cast hardening to make these materials as hard as steel. In fact, Sullen's original plan was to build the entire Wizard Tower with obsidian. The problem was that there was a limited amount of obsidian in the northern citadel. Su Len could only settle for the next best thing. Only a part of the obsidian was used as a material. At the same time, many areas were just ordinary rocks. Su Len planned to wait until he had money in the future to replace these rocks with obsidian. The main material of the Wizard Tower at the floating space tower level was obsidian. Then, the wizards would cast hardening on the obsidian. The defense of the Wizard Tower built in this way would reach a very high level. The wizard tower in the northern citadel did not cast hardening for the time being. He planned to cast hardening on the entire wizard tower after the main body was built. Although the casting requirements of hardening were not too high, such a wizard tower would need to be cast at least thousands of times to complete. In the next 10 days, Su Len began to cast stone to mud and stone to mud. He cast at least dozens of spells a day. Every time his energy was exhausted, he would take a magic potion to recover. The recovery of the magic potion was limited, and there was resistance to the magic potion. Every time he took it, the effect of the magic potion would be reduced. The resistance would only gradually disappear after 24 hours. Many times, Su Len could only rely on meditation to recover his magic after his magic was exhausted. The frequent use of spells made Su Len realize that the time he took to cast spells was shorter, and he was getting more and more proficient in casting spells. Ding! Congratulations to the host. You have cast a lot of spells, and after in-depth study and research, you have finally mastered the talent of instant casting. Currently, the spells that can be used for instant casting are Stone to Mud and Stone to Mud. Just after Su Len cast Stone to Mud again, the system prompt sounded in his ears, reminding him that he had acquired the talent of instant casting. The difficulty of instant casting was very high, and Su Len had only mastered 2 of the spells. If he wanted to learn other spells and achieve instant casting, he would need to train for a long time. I'm so tired. It almost killed me. Those wizard apprentices must finish their studies as soon as possible. And I need to recruit more spellcasters. It's too difficult to build a wizard academy with so few people. Su Len was lying on the sofa in the Lord's castle, looking exhausted. Ankara and Annie were giving him a full-body massage. Ankara and Annie had also mastered some low-level spells. Combined with grease and various massage techniques, it was absolutely wonderful. Chapter 323. The construction of the arcane garden progressed quickly. Tens of thousands of people were busy but not in a mess. Under the effect of the blessing of the god of crafts, Buff, the workers, slaves, and the management system of the entire northern town seemed to have become more efficient. The tens of thousands of refugees and monster slaves on the construction site were like a colony of ants. All the work was carried out in an orderly manner. Although the effect of the blessing of the god of crafts was extraordinary, it was not perfect. For example, the consumption of food had increased by 5 times. However, it was still a good deal to trade food for efficiency. The main construction of the arcane garden was almost completed. Su Len came to the platform at the top of the arcane garden. From this position, he could see the entire arcane garden. The arcane garden looked like a hexagram. In the middle of the garden was a high platform, which was lowered level by level. The 6 corners of the garden were also 6 slightly lower platforms. There were also domes and fountains on these platforms. Although it was not completed yet, the whole building was elegant and mysterious. The entire arcane garden was connected by a large number of canals. These canals continuously transported water from the fountain to various parts of the terrace. The terrace of the garden was built in a 3-dimensional manner. Solid rocks and stone pillars were stacked up layer by layer. Each layer was supported by a marble pillar. Every layer was built with palaces and lofts. Looking from the bottom of the arcane garden, the entire garden extended to the sky. A large number of plants and statues were planted in the garden. When the plants and statues were completed, the palace and attic here would be surrounded by trees and flowers. The whole garden was a perfect combination of nature and art. It was magnificent. Each layer was connected by stone passages. These passages were built with domes and arches. There were various animal reliefs on the doors and pillars. There were even artificial waterfalls in some places. There were many exquisitely carved animal heads in the channels. The water on the upper layer would flow through these animal heads. Below the water flow, there was a beautifully shaped flower bed. There were a total of 6 exits in the garden, each 12 meters tall and 8 meters wide. Exquisite patterns were carved on the doorposts, and there were statues of arcane creatures on both sides of the gate, such as Pegasi, griffins, angels, and so on. The ground was decorated with colorful bricks that were arranged into geometric patterns. To prevent water seepage, Sulen had set up protective circles between each layer. As long as these circles were not destroyed, the layer would not be damaged. Therefore, special soil was needed to be piled on top of the layer. At the same time, some energy pipes had to be installed here. Many magic plants needed sufficient energy to grow. Sulen came to the highest platform in the center of the arcane garden. The basic construction here was almost complete. The flower beds, fountains, and domed corridors were all completed. However, the various flowers and plants were not yet planted. There were also some places where the carvings were not completed. All of this needed to be done by the workers in a while. He was now preparing to place the mouth of the fountain of vitality here. Taking out the spring of vitality from his storage bar, he found that it was still stored in a crystal ball, and the mouth of the crystal ball was constantly spewing out spring water. Sulen snapped his fingers and went to the location that he had checked before. He then chose to use it. Are you sure you want to use the fountain of vitality here? Note, once used, the fountain of vitality cannot be moved. Use. With Sulen's confirmation, a light flashed, and the crystal ball flew from Sulen's hand. In the next second, the outer shell of the crystal ball quickly melted, and the mouth of the fountain of vitality that was wrapped in it slowly floated to the ground. The moment it floated to the ground, it directly merged with the earth. Sulen's spiritual sense clearly sensed that there was a water vein that contained a strange energy extending into the earth. In the blink of an eye, it extended to an unknown place. At the same time, a trickle of water began to flow out from the mouth of the fountain of vitality. Soon, more and more spring water gushed out, and a layer of water gathered in the marble pool. Ding! Installation of the fountain of vitality successful. The fountain of vitality can produce 30 liters of fountain of vitality per day. After hearing the system's prompt, Sulen nodded with satisfaction. 30 liters of fountain of vitality sounded like a lot, but in fact, it was equivalent to less than 2 barrels of water in his previous life. However, it should be enough to make potions. Activating the protective circle of the fountain of vitality, an invisible energy barrier instantly appeared, enveloping the entire spring water and the pool, and then disappeared. After installing the fountain of vitality, Sulen began to use the underground spring to create other fountains. Unlike the fountain of vitality, the purpose of these fountains was to irrigate and beautify. Half squatting on the ground, Sulen stretched out his hand and pressed on the bottom of the marble pool. A wave of energy instantly ignited from his hand, and in the next second, a strong stream of water gushed out from the ground. The clear stream of water rushed into the sky, and then exploded into countless water droplets. For a moment, the sky was filled with mist, and a rainbow appeared above the fountain. Then, Sulen began to summon fountains in the arcane garden. In addition to the fountain of vitality, there were more than 100 fountains of various sizes in the arcane garden. Sulen spent 2 days to finally guide all the fountains out. At the same time, the construction of the arcane garden was coming to an end. The basic building was all completed, and only some carvings were not completed. These parts needed time to be carefully sculpted, and the arcane garden was also preparing to plant magical plants. Now, there was not a single magical plant in the arcane garden. Sulen came to the center of the arcane garden. This was an inconspicuous palace. In the palace, there was a runic circle, and the runic circle exuded a mysterious aura. At this time, Sulen was standing in the center of the runic circle, and there was a fist-sized gap. He took out the legendary earth elemental stone from his storage space, and a wave of energy flowed from his hand into it. The entire stone emitted an earthy yellow light, and a heavy aura like the earth spread out. Then, the stone gently flew up, and then slowly spun a few times in the air, and then quickly fell. With a soft pop, it was perfectly embedded in the runic circle. As the stone fell, the entire runic circle was instantly activated, and a surge of elemental energy gushed out from the earth. The energy of the earth veins gathered, and the entire runic circle emitted a dazzling brilliance. A huge amount of elemental energy flowed through the energy channel that had been created long ago, and the entire arcane garden lit up little by little. In just a few breaths, the entire arcane garden was lit up. Soon, the huge arcane garden was shrouded in a mysterious aura, and then the elemental energy quickly expanded, enveloping the entire city, and then disappeared. Ding! Congratulations to the host, the arcane garden has been completed. Arcane garden, sky garden. This is a beautiful garden that is exquisitely made, filled with a mysterious aura and power. With this garden, the chances of a spellcaster hero being recruited will be increased to 1% within 30 miles of the city. At the same time, all magical plants will have a +4 production rate, and all spellcasters in the same faction will have a 200% mana recovery rate within the city. Elemental land +35, arcane aura +35, indestructible +37, delicacy +35, rapid growth +33, mana pool +20, ding. Congratulations to the host. Due to the influence of the arcane garden, the elemental energy around the spring of vitality is abundant, and the production rate of the spring of vitality has increased by 20 liters. What a good thing. Sulen was a little surprised when he heard the system notification. With the help of the arcane garden, the spring of vitality could produce 50 liters of spring water every day. The other attributes of the arcane garden were also very good, especially the one that Sulen cared about the most. It could increase the chances of a newborn becoming a wizard after birth. In other places, the chances of a newborn becoming a wizard were between 1 in 3,000 to 1 in 1,000, but here in the northern town, it had increased by 10 times. In a few years, there would be a lot of children with wizard potential in the northern town. These children would be the apprentices of Sullen's building Wizard Academy. The strange phenomenon of the arcane garden naturally attracted the attention of several churches. After seeing the beautiful arcane garden, they were also secretly surprised. They could clearly feel the huge elemental energy around this beautiful and magnificent building, but they all tacitly agreed not to peek. Su Luan had proved his strength, and there was a god behind him. They didn't want to cause Su Luan to dislike their church because of these things and make enemies out of nothing. They also felt that after the arcane garden was built, the elemental energy around it had become a lot denser, which was a good thing. After the arcane garden was built, Sulen began to arrange for people to plant all kinds of magic plants. At the same time, he also announced that he would be buying magic plants at a high price in the Adventurers Union. Although there were many magic plants in the arcane garden, there weren't many types. Sulen could easily get a lot of them by spending some money. Sulen planned to give some of the production of the arcane garden to the northern town spellcasting team as a benefit. Sulen planned to give each spellcaster an area, and the harvest of this area would belong to the spellcasters. As for how they would grow it, that was their own business. The plants in the arcane garden grew much faster than in other places. It was almost the same as the planting area in the arcane garden, but the land in the arcane garden was limited. It was far smaller than the arcane garden in the arcane garden. However, other than planting, the arcane garden could increase the spellcaster's mana recovery speed by a few times. It could also increase the chances of summoning a spellcaster hero. If Sulen wanted to build a wizard academy, it would be too slow if he only relied on Hathaway and the others. Chapter 324. After the main body of the arcane garden was built, the rest of the work was to carve some statues, repair the roads, and other trivial tasks. These tasks did not require too much manpower. Sulen left some people to continue the work, and the rest of the workers were assigned to the wizard tower. The rest of the workers were to build the infrastructure of the outer city. The main body of the wizard tower was also nearing completion. As for the various facilities inside the wizard tower, they could only be built slowly in the future. After all, ordinary people could not participate in these things. Sulen checked the progress of the construction and made sure that the construction could be completed before the buff of the Blessing of the Craftsman God ended. Hathaway sent a message that the 2 pieces of flesh essence he gave her had been made into potions. Sulen was ready to go and take a look. When he came to the lab, the new teacher, Lorraine, was teaching the apprentices. Sulen did not disturb the class and went to Hathaway's lab from the side aisle. "This is the potion you made?" Sulen said as he held a crystal bottle. The crystal bottle was filled with red liquid. As the crystal bottle shook, the liquid inside kept flashing. The potion in your hand is actually a defective product, Hathaway said as she took off a pair of special glasses. Defective product? What do you mean? Sulen asked curiously. Hathaway moved her shoulders, and the loose wizard robe in front of her chest was pushed up. That's the first time I made a potion. The side effects of the flesh essence were not completely removed. Look, the color of the potion is still dark red. I used identification. This potion can increase one's lifespan by 10 years, but the side effect is a certain chance of mutating into an aberration. It's just that the contamination has been removed. Sulen put down the crystal bottle. Have you made any successful potions? Hathaway flipped her hair, and Sulen's heart skipped a beat. Of course, and I made 3 bottles. Hathaway said as she handed the 3 crystal bottles to Sulen. Compared to the crystal bottle just now, the liquid in the 3 crystal bottles was light blue. The liquid shone like the stars in the moon. This is the potion that completely removes the side effects? Sulen was a little surprised. That's right. However, because the power of darkness in the flesh essence was deeply entangled, even the lifespan increase in the flesh essence decreased slightly after it was completely removed. Therefore, the lifespan increase of these potions was not as much as the previous one. 1 bottle can increase one's lifespan by 7 years. Sulen smiled. That's already very good. He then picked up the potion and let the system identify it. Unnamed, potion. Precious, the user's lifespan increase in the user's lifespan increase the user's lifespan and increase the user's lifespan. Unnamed, potion. Precious. Made with flesh essence and moon dew as the main ingredients. Because all the dark energy was not removed during the making process, there is a 3% chance of flesh distortion. Using this potion will increase the user's lifespan by 10 years and increase the user's recovery speed. Sulen named the 3 potions Moonlight Potion. As for the failed potion, he named it Life Potion. Actually, it was not a failure since it could increase one's lifespan by 10 years, although there were some small side effects. Sulen planned to trade this life potion with the oddities. This kind of potion that could increase one's lifespan without too much of a side effect was very popular. If he spread the word, those nobles who were nearing the end of their lives would definitely spend a lot of money to buy it. Although wizards had many ways to increase their lifespan, they all had some side effects. This life potion was very effective. Of course, this was not attractive to legendary wizards. Sulen gave 1 moonlight potion to Hathaway and put away the other 2. Ever since he broke through to legendary, Sulen could vaguely feel the limit of his lifespan. Originally, a legendary warrior's lifespan was between 200 to 300 years, but Sulen's lifespan was more than 1,000 years. After he gained divinity and the power of his territory increased, Sulen's lifespan became even longer. He was not in a hurry to use the moonlight potion now. As for Hathaway, as a wizard, as long as she broke through to legendary, her lifespan would also increase to 1,000 years. As time passed, the time for the blessing of the craftsman god to end was getting closer and closer. Finally, on the afternoon of the last day, the main building of the northern town wizard tower fell to the ground. The few spellcasters in charge of the construction also let out a long sigh of relief. Using a lot of spells every day made them very tired. Looking at the towering wizard tower in front of him, Sulen also felt a surge of excitement in his heart. In such an era of backward technology, it was absolutely a miracle to build a building more than 100 meters high, although the interior of the wizard tower had not been built at all. Ding! Congratulations to the host, the construction of the wizard tower is complete. Ding! Congratulations to the host, the wizard tower has received the special effect of the blessing of the craftsman god. The wizard tower has received the energy reduction attribute. Energy reduction. The energy consumption of the wizard tower with this attribute is reduced by 50%. Sorcerer's Tower, unnamed 10 floors, 3 underground floors, 7 floors above ground, 135 meters in height, constructed using magical steel, obsidian, and granite. Indestructible plus 57, mind intimidation plus 45, energy control plus 48, casting difficulty reduction plus 2, mana recovery plus 60, spell research speed plus 48, money consumption plus 30, advancement speed plus 15, energy reduction. Looking at the attributes of the wizard tower, Su Lin was very satisfied. The next thing to do was to build the interior of the wizard tower. The elemental pool should be put on the agenda. Only with the elemental pool could the wizard tower be considered a real wizard tower. Otherwise, this wizard tower would at most be a sturdy tower. In addition to the elemental pool, the wizard tower also needed a large number of fully constructed puppets. At the same time, it also needed to install various attack systems and most importantly, the tower spirit. The tower spirit of this wizard tower was at least a legendary tower spirit. However, Hathaway had not advanced to legendary yet. Although Su Lin had a legendary soul crystal, he still could not make a legendary tower spirit. A wizard tower with a tower spirit and various fully constructed puppets had to be prepared. Even if there was no one in charge, the challenge level of this wizard tower was at least level 21. In other words, at least a standard adventure team with 5 legendary members would be required to try to attack. Of course, most of the wizard towers were extremely challenging. Legendary wizards had a long lifespan. Although they preferred to study all kinds of spells and the nature of the world, the defense of the wizard tower would never be sloppy. In a few hundred years, even the most lazy legendary wizard would have accumulated a ridiculous number of all kinds of advanced golems. 200 steel golem legions, 1,000 rock golem legions, and even a few legendary golems. Under the command of the tower spirit, the challenge level of such a wizard tower was likely to be above level 26. In Sullen's wizard tower, he was also preparing to build a golem legion. Obsidian golems, steel golems, and other legendary construct golems were necessary. If there was a chance, Su Lin would definitely build them. The information of legendary construct golems was still very precious. Hathaway's original wizard school did not have such legendary construct golems. However, because of the successful construction of the wizard tower in Sullen's system store, some products were unlocked. Among them, there were a few legendary construct golems for sale. The price was also very high. The cheapest one was the diamond golem. The price of the diamond golem was 1 million kinnar. The diamond golem was not made of diamond. This kind of golem was made of a special kind of crystal. The hardness of this crystal was very high, close to the hardness of diamond. Its appearance also looked similar, so this kind of golem was called the diamond golem. In fact, it was not diamond. A diamond golem was 5 meters tall and weighed up to 10 tons. Such a behemoth was not so easy to deal with. Although the diamond golem could not fly, its strength was very high. Moreover, the diamond golem had strong defense and magic resistance. Ordinary weapons could not cause damage to it, and spells below level 5 were ineffective. Compared to the diamond golem, the mithril golem and the adamantine golem were slightly better. These two types of golems were mixed with some mithril and adamantine when they were built, which made them more powerful than the diamond golem. The mithril golem was characterized by its fast speed. It had far more speed than ordinary golems, and its defense and magic resistance were no worse than the diamond golem. The adamantine golem was much slower, but its strength, defense, and magic resistance were stronger than the mithril golem. In fact, in Sullen's view, these legendary golems were basically not much different from Gundam mechs except that they could not fly. In addition to these golems, there were several other types of legendary golems in the system shop, such as arcane guards, magic breakers, and magic constructs. These golems made Sullen's jaw drop. These golems had the ability to fly. Among them, the arcane guards could cast spells. The magic breakers were not only terrifyingly fast, but also had high magic resistance. They had the ability to fly, and their weapons had the ability to break magic. They were definitely difficult to deal with for wizards. As for the last magic construct, Su Lin preferred to call it the magic mech. This kind of golem had to be piloted by a human. Its functions were no worse than the Gundam in various anime and manga in his previous life. This was because the Magic Mech's challenge level was as high as level 35. If there was a pilot, the challenge level would be even higher. P.S. Everyone, give a name to the Wizard Tower, and by the way, give a name to the Wizard Academy. I think the Northern Wizard Tower is too casual. Chapter 325. Although there was information about magic constructs in the system shop, it was locked. The construct golems that Su Luan could currently purchase were diamond golems, mithril golems, and adamantine golems. He was planning to build a golem army in the Wizard Tower. The main force of the golem army would be the iron golems. Su Lan had a dozen iron golems in the secret realm, but they were all repaired. Hathaway was still researching how to make iron golems, so it would take some time before she could make one. Also, iron golems were expensive to make. The entire golem army was built with Kinnar. As for legendary golems, they could only be created by legendary adepts. In addition to the steel golems, the Wizard Tower was also preparing to build a gargoyle golem legion. The gargoyle golems were an improved version of the obsidian golems. The gargoyle golems had good physical defense, and at the same time, higher magic resistance. With these gargoyle golems, the Wizard Tower's anti-air power was supplemented. Moreover, the gargoyle golem was different from the steel golem. When the gargoyle golem was not activated, it would enter a petrified state. In this state, the gargoyle golem was like an ordinary statue, but its defense was very high. It was a good place to place it and act as a guard. After the Wizard Tower was built, a large amount of manpower began to be released. Some of the serfs continued to farm, while others continued to build other buildings in the northern town. Although the third phase of the northern town had completed the city walls and some residential buildings, there were no public facilities. The next step was to build roads and public facilities, such as public toilets, public bathrooms, city streets, sewers, water pipes, and many other basic facilities. At the same time, there were many empty spaces in the northern town. Some of these spaces would be used to build houses, while others would be used to build markets and business districts. Su Lan had already planned to divide the inner town market, and part of it would be moved to the outer town. As the outer town market was gradually built, the refugees and serfs who had not yet obtained citizenship would also be moved to the outer town. The northern town was still very busy. The farmland outside the town continued to expand, and the new farmland was planted according to the previous proportion. The grassroots officials in North Town City were already very experienced in this kind of work. As long as Su Lan assigned the task, the grassroots officials would complete it very well. During this period of time, the Northern Town's official training school was doing very well. With the help of the Wisdom Church's scholars, the number of officials in the Northern Town's official training school had doubled. Finally, the shortage of officials in the Northern Town's official training school had been alleviated. In fact, it wasn't just Northern Battlefront City. Even Mirror Lake City and Centaur City needed a lot of officials. Moreover, these two cities were lacking in officials. Su Lan had specially assigned a group of well-trained grassroots officials to these two cities. During this period of time, Su Lan had also asked his men to keep an eye on the tavern to see if there were any visitors. However, although the tavern had a recruitment attribute, it was obviously not as powerful as the recruitment order. No heroes had appeared during this period of time. Although there were no heroes, there were still some ordinary talents. Su Lan had recruited a few ordinary talents from the tavern. These people were either bankrupt merchants, nobles whose families had declined, or master craftsmen with special skills. After checking their attributes, Su Lan assigned them to suitable positions. The development of North Town City required a lot of talents. In fact, any city that wanted to prosper needed a lot of talents. In addition to purchased slaves and migrated refugees, most of the people in North Town City were people that Su Lan had forcibly recruited from the northern provinces. Although most of these people were ordinary people, there were still some who were originally middle-class or upper-class people in the city. Because of the war, they were brought to North Town City. Although many of these people didn't recognize North Town City at first and wanted to escape, after living and working here for a while, they developed a sense of belonging. In fact, what they didn't know was that this sense of belonging was the effect of the various attributes in Northtown City. In addition, the refugees and serfs had a heavy workload, and the food was poor. It didn't take long for these people to express their willingness to work for Sulen. They wanted better treatment. Most of these people had received education and were skilled in their own fields. Therefore, the northern town city welcomed them with open arms. It was a sunny day. After yesterday's rain, the temperature in northern town city was a bit cold. Unknowingly, it was already late autumn in the northern wasteland. Autumn in the northern wasteland was very good. The first snow of winter would come in November. It would only start to thaw in February of the next year. Therefore, there wasn't much time left for Northtown City this year. A large area of farmland outside the city was sowing seeds. Sugar beets were suitable for growing in cold climates. Sugar beets produced more sugar during the season. Now, a large number of serfs were planting sugar beets. With the harvest altar, sugar beets didn't need a whole year to grow. However, this period of time was the best for both yield and sugar. In addition to planting sugar beets, some of the slaves were planting winter wheat. The demand for wheat in Northtown City was very high. Normal serfs could eat potatoes, but the caravans that came to trade would definitely eat flour. Sulen had also started to give some benefits to the soldiers and grassroots officials. For example, they would be given 10 pounds of flour or some meat every month. Of course, these couldn't be eaten. These benefits were more of a symbol of status. It made the serfs and refugees envious of those people from the bottom of their hearts. Then they would work hard, join the army, or serve the Lord. There was also good news. The chief gourmet of Northtown City, Frodo, finally succeeded in making tofu after hundreds of experiments. Last time, Sulen wanted to make tofu, but in the end, he made soy milk. Although soy milk with some sugar tasted good, it was far worse than the variety of soy products. Although Sulen didn't know how to make tofu, he still gave Frodo some directions. He didn't expect the halfling to be so obsessed with food. It took him a few months to finally make tofu. Frodo used a brown salty water, and the tofu he made tasted good. Therefore, tofu was added to the list of delicacies in Northtown City. Next, Sulen told him various ways to cook tofu, and Frodo began to study tofu again. Sulen was very supportive of Frodo. He was counting on the chef to replicate all the delicacies he had eaten in his previous life in this world. Sulen also had a deep grudge against the food in this world. Ordinary civilians basically ate mashed potatoes, potato cubes, and occasionally some fish. Although the nobles didn't lack meat, Sulen didn't dare to compliment their cooking methods. Roasting, boiling, and frying were basically the same. Stargazy pie from his previous life was probably a delicacy in this world. Fortunately, there were halflings, these little guys who liked to enjoy life and eat good food. Otherwise, the food in this world would be even worse. In Northtown City, the planting of soybeans had also begun to expand. Soybeans were one of the few crops in Northtown City that could provide oil. Sulen drew out a total of 8,000 mu of land to plant soybeans, and built ditches that extended in all directions. With enough labor, the land in Northtown City was reclaimed very quickly. Now, there were almost 100,000 mu of farmland in Northtown City, and the best land around the city had been reclaimed into farmland. With the 100,000 mu of land planted, the harvest could easily make Northtown City self-sufficient. At the same time, there was also a large amount of surplus food to be used for brewing wine, developing the breeding industry, and supplying Mirror Lake City and Centaur City. After being self-sufficient in food, Northtown City would have a firm foothold in the northern wasteland. Food, land, and population were all very precious at any time. Although gold was precious, it was far less important to Sulen. As long as he had food, land, and population, it would be easy to accumulate wealth. After the arcane garden was completed, several churches had already withdrawn their people. During this time, the temple of the goddess of wealth showed Sulen what it meant to be rich and willful. Compared to most temples that were built with granite and other rocks, such as the Temple of War, which was entirely built with granite. Who asked the Temple of War to be poor? The Temple of Wealth was built with pure white marble. The entire temple was built with marble. Even Su Len could not help but be shocked by the cost. In North Town City, other than the Arc de Triomphe, which was completely built with marble, only the Temple of Wealth was built with marble. Although other churches also used marble, they were not as crazy as the Temple of Wealth. There were thousands of churches on the continent, among which there were thousands of cities that could afford to build temples. If they were built with ordinary stone, one could imagine how much money it would cost to build so many temples. Moreover, the Temple of Wealth was not only built with marble. They also used a lot of gold to decorate the temple. Many carvings, walls, pillars, and many other places were inlaid with gold. These people were not afraid that the gold would be stolen. Su Len could not help but feel envious. If he had not washed his hands of gold for many years, he could not help but go to the Temple of Wealth to steal some things. The high-grade priest of the Goddess of Wealth even blinded Su Len's eyes. The priest's robe was made of high-quality silk with a lot of golden thread sewn on it. It was completely different from the style of the priests of the Temple of Wisdom. The priest of the Goddess of Wealth had 8 rings on his hand. Did he not feel that it was inconvenient to carry things? Chapter 326. The priest of the Lady of Wealth was wearing all kinds of accessories, including his priest robe. Although some of them were not high level, his outfit was worth at least 500,000 to 700,000 kinar. High-grade priests were already rich, and the priests of the Lady of Wealth were even richer. Apart from a portion of the church's financial resources coming from their respective caravans, shops, and land, some of it was also donations from the believers. Many of the believers were crying and begging to donate all their wealth to the church so that they could enter the kingdom of God after death and continue to live there. Some of them were healed by priests. Although wizards also had healing spells, they were far less effective than priests. For example, broken limb regrowth and soul damage. Sometimes, not only did you have to pay a certain price, but you also had to pay a certain price before the temple would allow a priest to heal you. Even Su Luen couldn't be envious of this. The wizard's regeneration potion was made according to the regeneration principle of the trolls, and the effect was good. However, the effect of the regeneration potion was much worse when it encountered strong acid and fire, but the healing spells of the priests were completely fine. Dusk. Su Len held Phyllis's white and tender hand and took a stroll in the Lord's castle. The Lord's castle had expanded a few times, and the original inner city wall had become the outer wall of the Lord's castle. Not only did Su Len live here, but even the families of the Lord's guards lived here. The construction of the Lord's castle was also ongoing. According to Sullen's blueprint, the Lord's castle needed to be a luxurious palace filled with art and all kinds of statues. However, this goal was still far away. Perhaps in a few years, this place would become a luxurious palace complex. In fact, Su Len planned to build a Chinese garden outside the city when his territory was more developed. He liked that kind of garden-style residence. As the princess of the Kingdom of Florence, Phyllis had seen many beautiful manors. Su Len saw that she was bored here, so he found something for her to do. It was to design a luxurious palace complex for the Lord's castle. Phyllis was very happy to accept the palace design, so she agreed without hesitation. This was the happiest period of Phyllis's life. As for Sullen's many women, she was already prepared before she came to the northern town. As a princess, she had seen the debauchery of the upper nobles. Compared to those, Sullen's was already considered good. Besides, Su Len was a legendary figure with a huge territory. It was expected that he had many partners. She did not have to maintain the palace etiquette all the time, nor did she have a strict nanny to remind her. Her sisters also took good care of her, so she could completely let herself go. Su Len was very happy to accept this situation. Of course, in some formal occasions, Phyllis still paid attention to etiquette. She was a very good partner. Nightfall. The gorgeous magic crystal lamps were lit up, and the luxurious hall was ablaze with lights. An exquisite and sumptuous dinner was served on the long table. Under the bright lights, Chris, Hathaway, Alex, Phyllis and the two half-elf maids were all sitting quietly at the long table. The charming faces of the several beauties were tender and alluring. Chris was seductive, Hathaway was intellectual, Alex was wild and hot, Phyllis was elegant, and the half-elf maids were youthful and energetic. Su Luan couldn't stop himself from looking at all these beauties. Although they were all wearing silk dresses, their styles were different. The ladies had good figures, which were measured by Su Len himself. They had full breasts, slender waists, and beautiful fishtail dresses that outlined the perfect curve of their round buttocks. Their eyes were moving, as if there was an invisible temptation. A fresh roast suckling pig was served on the table. The rich aroma was mouth-watering. It was all prepared by Frodo himself. At the surrounding tables, many generals and officials of the northern city were sitting upright. There were also representatives of the temples and churches. In addition, there were also some merchants who had deep ties with the northern city. Su Len sat at the head of the table, which was at the top of the banquet. Today's banquet was to celebrate the completion of the third phase of the Northern City project. At the same time, it was also to communicate with the churches and merchants. The banquet was very successful. After the banquet, Su Len took the ladies for a walk in the garden of the Lord's castle. They had been busy for a while, and Su Len had not relaxed and chatted with them for a while. A light breeze blew, and the light fragrance of flowers drifted with the wind. The garden of the city lord's castle was Hathaway's masterpiece. Although the garden was not big, there were constant arcane magic circles in it that could maintain the temperature of spring. No matter the time, the flowers would bloom. After strolling for a while, Su Len went back to his old habits. He used the excuse that he was sleepy and wanted to rest. He took the ladies back to his room. In fact, even Phyllis, who was the weakest among them, did not feel sleepy, let alone Su Len, who was in human form. The ladies naturally knew what Su Len was thinking. They all rolled their eyes at him. When they returned to their room, Su Len was surprised to see that the ladies were wearing beautiful stockings of different colors. Seeing this scene, Sullen's fighting spirit soared. He also did not expect that Chris and the ladies could get their hands on stockings. Stockings did exist in this world. Stockings were usually only sold by the drows in the Underdark. They were expensive and made of underground spider silk. As soon as they appeared, they were sold out. Where did you get them? Su Len hugged Chris lazily. His hands could not help but slide down her body. I found some wild underground spiders in the Underdark, so I kept them in captivity, Chris said with a smile. Hathaway used alchemy and a half-elf master weaver to make them. What do you think? Do you like them? Chris felt Sullen's passionate gaze. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly. Her charming face was very flirtatious. I love them. Su Len chuckled. Tonight was destined to be a sleepless night. Time passed by. The harvest festival in the northern town was approaching. Last year, Su Len set the first harvest festival in the northern town as the Harvest Festival. This festival was unique to the northern town. This year, the northern town had a great harvest again. During this time, the entire northern town was preparing for the festival. Currently, there were 3 festivals in the northern town. Other than the Harvest Festival, there was the New Year and Victory Day. Victory Day was the day the Arc de Triomphe was completed. Everyone in the northern town was looking forward to the festival. Because during the festival, even the serfs and refugees were allowed to rest. Furthermore, the northern town would provide all kinds of delicious food, colorful fireworks, and even circus performances. With the arrival of the Harvest Festival, the entire northern town became a sea of joy. Because of the festival, all the streets in the city were cleaned. Many streets were hung with colorful lights. Charming flowers bloomed on both sides of the road. The fountains in the square were colorful under the illumination of the magic lights. All kinds of food stalls were neatly arranged. Countless people and children were enjoying the food with smiles on their faces. Many people who came to the northern town for the first time were surprised by this scene. In this era, very few lords would hold such a grand festival. Among the nobles, festivals had nothing to do with the peasants. They would hold all kinds of banquets and indulge in wine and women in the castle. They would never give a piece of bread to the commoners outside the castle. For this festival, the wizard apprentices who had studied for half a year were responsible for the fireworks. The magic fireworks were made by alchemy. They looked more beautiful than the fireworks Su Len had seen in his previous life. In addition to the magic fireworks, these wizard apprentices had also learned some Circle Zero spells and magic tricks. They could also release some magic fireworks. These apprentices also performed at the request of Su Len. The churches also participated in the harvest festival. For the churches, such a grand festival was a good opportunity for them to gather faith. Naturally, these churches would not let go of this opportunity. The churches prepared a lot of food and specially hired a circus to perform. When night fell, a large number of people gathered in the squares of the city. Everyone looked up at the sky curiously. Accompanied by a sharp noise, a purple ball of light flew up high. Then, with a loud bang, a bright firework appeared in the sky. As this firework bloomed, more and more fireworks also bloomed in the sky. The commoners had never seen such a beautiful scene. They were all shocked and could not close their mouths. When the fireworks ended, Su Len appeared on the high platform and waved to everyone. Warm cheers sounded. The cheers were like a tsunami. At this moment, if Su Len opened the system panel, the value of the people's sentiment at the bottom of the city would be increased to the maximum. People's sentiment changed very quickly. However, the sentiment of the people in the northern town was always around 85. After Su Len appeared on the high platform, he began to distribute a large amount of free food. At the same time, various acrobats in the square began to perform. Some young girls began to dance in the music. Young men and women also went to perform. At this time, the major temples were also doing their best to attract people to believe in their respective gods. In this environment, many people had become believers. Although they were only shallow believers, as long as there were no accidents, many people would become devout believers. The celebration this time was also the day that many churches had gained the most believers. Su Len also took a few women to parade in the city. Today's festival was to celebrate with the people. The group kept waving to the crowd on both sides. Wherever Su Len went, there would be cheers. After the parade was over, Su Len took everyone to play. Because Hathaway cast a spell, they were not recognized. At this time, he did not want to be disturbed. A group of city guards in plain clothes were also around to protect them. On this day, the whole city was in a sea of joy. Chapter 327. The grand festival had come to an end, and Northern Town was once again bustling with activity. Su Len followed Chris to the underground world. He was going to try to breed underground spiders. It was not easy to weave stockings with the silk of underground spiders, and alchemy was also involved. The price of each pair of stockings sold in the Underdark was more than 50 kinnar. Even so, the demand still exceeded the supply. The main reason was that the quality was not good, and it was basically disposable. Su Len planned to divide an area in the underground world to breed underground spiders, and the silk produced could be used to weave stockings. The drows were very experienced in breeding spiders. Although the drows in Northern Town had left the underground world for a long time and had even mixed with humans, the method of breeding spiders had been passed down. Underground spiders were large spiders with a ferocious appearance. They had 8 limbs, and their legs were about 1 meter long. The body in the middle was about the size of a dog. Its abdomen was large, and its body was covered with short, dark gray hair. It looked ferocious and terrifying. This spider had 8 eyes and a pair of ferocious fangs in its mouth. It was the kind of monster that could leave a psychological scar. Although the underground spiders looked ferocious, they were herbivores. They liked to eat mushrooms and all kinds of fungi. Although they were poisonous, it was their weapon of self-defense. There was a silk sac in the abdomen of an underground spider, and it would produce some silk every day. However, the silk could not be used directly. It was too sticky, and it had to be processed. After Sulen learned about the living habits of the spiders, he built a large farm outside Crete. At the same time, he sent some drows to take charge of the production. Currently, there were more than 100 underground spiders in the farm, and they could produce more than 300 pairs of stockings per month. In fact, the raw materials for the stockings were easy to find, but the production was difficult. Hathaway could not spend a lot of time and energy processing the silk with alchemy. Fortunately, the alchemy part wasn't a very difficult spell. It was mainly to eliminate the stickiness of the spider silk. It took 2 days to create a runic array, and as long as the runic array was activated, the spider silk would be dealt with. This kind of work could be done by the wizard apprentices. As for the silk stockings, it was left to the half-elf weavers. Although the weaving bureau in Northern Town wasn't very famous, it could still produce silk, fine linen, cotton, and so on. However, due to the lack of manpower, the production was not very high. Currently, only a few half-elf master weavers could do fine work like knitting stockings. Sulen could only let them try to train some weaver apprentices. Just as Sulen was about to build the interior of the Adept Tower with Hathaway and the others, a guard hurried over. "Sir, the security team found some corpses in the city. Have you caught the murderer yet?" Sulen said without raising his head. In a city with more than 100,000 people, it was not a big deal to have 1 or 2 murders occasionally. Although the laws in Northern Town City were strict, there were still people who didn't believe in evil and wanted to try. "I'm sorry, sir. We didn't find the murderer, and the number of deaths is quite high." "How many? Do you have any leads?" 24. "No leads yet." Hearing this number, Sulen suddenly raised his head. 24 people were killed, and you don't have any leads? "I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry to disappoint you. Where are the corpses?" "Take me there." Under the guard's lead, Sulen quickly arrived at the crime scene. At this time, the crime scene had been isolated by the security team. As soon as he entered, Sulen smelled a strong smell of blood. After seeing the corpses on the ground, his face became even more gloomy. "Sir, all the corpses were killed with one blow, and all their hearts were dug out," Harrison said as he walked forward. Sulen came closer to observe. There were both men and women, and they were about 30 years old. They were in the prime of their lives. There were signs of struggle on their bodies. Some of them even had their hearts dug out when they were still alive, so there was a lot of blood at the scene. "Who found the corpses first?" Sulen asked. "It's Bobby." Harrison waved to a middle-aged man who looked a little submissive next to him and asked him to come over. "Sir, you're looking for me," Bobby said, nodding and bowing. "Tell me what you know about these corpses again." "Yes, sir." Soon, Bobby told the story from beginning to end, and Sulen didn't find any clues. "These people are just ordinary refugees. Who would kill them and dig out their hearts?" Sulen said with a frown. "Sir, I know some clues." At this time, outside the quarantine circle, a man who looked like an adventurer waved his arms and shouted, but the soldier in front of him didn't allow him to get close to the quarantine circle. "Let him in." Sulen thought for a moment and said to the soldier, then the soldier stepped aside. "Hello, Sir Lord, I'm Owen." "Nice to meet you, I'm a rogue," the adventurer said respectfully. Sulen waved his hand and said, "I'm not interested in this. You said you have clues, now tell me." Sir Lord, I do have some clues about those murderers, but..." Owen said as he made a universal gesture. "As long as the clues you say are true and can help us find the murderers, I can give you 1,000 kinnur as a reward. How about it?" "Deal." Owen quickly nodded and said, "Sir, I wonder if you've heard of any rumors?" "What rumors?" Sulen asked with raised eyebrows. Owen looked around cautiously and said in a low voice, "The Heartless." Sulen was a little confused. He had never heard of this name. Seeing Sulen's expression, Owen continued, "Sir, it's not surprising that you don't know. The Heartless are actually an evil god's church. They used to be active on the southern coast, but later on, they did something that caused a large number of civilian casualties and were hunted down by the forces on the southern coast. They often dig out the hearts of living people and use them as sacrifices to the evil god. Therefore, they are also called the Heartless." According to Wen's explanation, Sulen finally figured out what kind of people the so-called Heartless were. These people believed in an evil god, and this evil god's favorite sacrifice was hearts. Therefore, after these people defeated their enemies, they would dig out their hearts or use a massacre as a sacrifice to the evil god they believed in. In the end, they would dig out their hearts and use them as sacrifices. There were many types of gods in this world. Even among the orthodox gods, there were many types. There were good, evil, neutral, lawful, chaotic, and other combinations. Apart from these gods, there were also evil gods that were not recognized. These evil gods had a part of the god's power and liked blood sacrifices. The orthodox gods had divinity, divine titles, and divine power, while the evil gods only had a part of it. Although the evil gods would respond to their believers and give them power, they would eventually devour the power and believers. Even if the person who used the evil god's power was not killed by others in the end, the evil god would snatch their soul. "Are you saying that the heartless evil god's believers have come to Northtown?" Sulen said. "That seems to be the case." Wen nodded and said, "I suggest you seek the help of the temple. Those Heartless are not weak. You are a rogue, so you should be proficient in tracking. You are also quite strong. Help me find the traces of those evil gods' believers," Sulen said as he looked at the rogue in front of him. Su Luan looked at the rogue in front of him and said. This rogue was a level 3 transcendent professional and was familiar with the Heartless style of doing things, so it was very suitable for him to search for the Heartless. As for seeking help from the church, Su Luan did not consider it for the time being. The church was indeed very willing to help Su Len deal with these evil gods' churches, but this way, the church would have the opportunity to intervene in the matters of Northtown, which Su Len could not accept. Okay, but tracking also requires payment. Moreover, this mission is very dangerous. I want 2,000 kinnar. Wen hesitated for a moment before nodding and agreeing. Okay. Su Len nodded in agreement. After Su Len paid 1,000 kinnar as a commission, Wen began his official work. As a rogue proficient in tracking, Wen was still very reliable. It did not take long for him to find some clues and start following the clues left behind. Su Len followed behind with a barbarian guard. Following the traces left behind, everyone quickly arrived outside the city. After arriving outside the city, the traces became more obvious. It was obvious that these people no longer hid their tracks after leaving the city. After a while, Su Len suddenly discovered that they had come to a cemetery. This was the place where Northtown City buried the dead. There were also cemeteries in Northtown City, but only soldiers who died in battle or citizens who paid a large sum of money could be buried in those cemeteries. Ordinary refugees, serfs, and monster slaves were buried outside the city. Although Northtown City had been established for less than 2 years, many people were buried in this cemetery. Because it was a cemetery, it was indeed hidden and deserted. The rogue walking at the front suddenly stopped and quickly walked to a cemetery. He said in a deep voice, "Look at these graves. The tombstones have been here for a long time, but the soil underground has been turned over recently." Hearing his voice, everyone stepped forward. Indeed, there was something wrong with the soil here. It should have happened in the past 2 days. Wen squatted down, picked up some soil with his hand, and asked. Then, he pushed away the weeds in front of the tombstone. There were obvious traces of movement under the tombstone. Someone opened this grave 3 days ago at most. Chapter 328. Someone had moved the grave. In this world, people respected the dead. Normally, they should not be disturbed after they were buried. This kind of behavior was prohibited by the laws of every country. This was also one of the reasons why people on the continent were against necromancers. There are necromancers around. It seems that necromancers are here. Sulen sensed a very weak necromancy aura. Sir, should we open it? Luen asked hesitantly. Sulen nodded. Open it. Necromancers had appeared in this cemetery. This was not good news. The few of them were very fast. It did not take long for them to dig up one of the graves that had been turned over. When they opened the coffin, it was empty. Necromancers. This disgusting aura is definitely necromancers. I still remember their aura. Luen said with a gloomy face. Sulen's face was also a little ugly. He decided to give these people the harshest punishment for daring to cause trouble in his territory. He did not want a large number of necromancers to appear in his territory. Necromancy detection. A light flashed. There were no necromancers around, but the necromancy aura pointed him in the right direction. That direction. The group set off in that direction. They passed through the cemetery and soon arrived at a forest. Luen continued to follow. Soon, they found a very hidden cave. There were lush vines on both sides of the cave. If one did not look carefully, they would not be able to find the hidden cave at all. Don't come close. A barbarian warrior wanted to approach the cave, but he was stopped by Sulen. There are hidden sentries outside. With the help of the strategic map, Sulen easily found 2 hidden sentries hidden in a tree and under the vines. The 2 red dots on the map were glowing purple. Sulen pulled Luen and pointed at the vines, then at Luen. He left the one on the tree to Luen. The 2 of them each took care of one of the hidden sentries. This was Luen's old profession. He couldn't compare to the barbarians in frontal combat, but he was better than all the barbarians combined. Unless the barbarians understood the ultimate meaning of the Assassin's Creed and killed all the witnesses, he wouldn't be discovered. After casting an invisibility spell on himself, Sulen's figure disappeared in an instant. Soon, there was a slight sound, and then there was no more movement. At the same time, Luen arrived at the target location. Throat cut. Backstab. Kidney shot. 3 consecutive strikes were unleashed in an instant, and the sentry was killed before he could even make a sound. After clearing out the hidden sentries, Sulen led everyone into the cave. To his surprise, the cave was unexpectedly large. Sulen touched the rock wall and found traces of magic on it. The cave was not naturally formed. It should have been expanded by magic on the basis of the original cave. The air in the cave was not turbid. After Sulen cast a group invisibility spell on everyone, they began to go deeper into the cave. There were not many forks in the cave. After taking a few wrong turns, they finally came to a place similar to a hall. The hall was not small, about 500 square meters. The most eye-catching thing was a building similar to an altar in the middle. There was a blood pool in the center of the altar, and there were several smaller blood pools around it. There were more than a dozen bright red hearts on the altar. At this time, the blood pools were full of blood, and the whole hall was filled with a strong smell of blood. Blood sacrifice. Seeing this scene, Luen immediately thought of blood sacrifice. Blood sacrifice became popular after the Witch King era. At that time, many gods accepted blood sacrifice. Through blood sacrifice, they could quickly increase their divine power. Many gods would ask their followers to perform blood sacrifice. Among them, the desert gods liked blood sacrifice. The desert gods might need thousands of slaves for a blood sacrifice. When they held a grand sacrificial ceremony, there might even be tens of thousands of sacrifices. However, later on, many gods found that although blood sacrifice could quickly increase their divine power, the side effects were very big. The resentment of the dead was also absorbed. This resentment was very difficult to remove. Once it accumulated too much, it would have a serious impact on the gods. Just like the desert gods, although they prospered for a while, they soon declined and finally disappeared completely. Later on, the gods gradually rejected blood sacrifice. Only some evil gods and demons liked blood sacrifice. Of course, some primitive tribes also liked to use blood sacrifice when worshipping ancestral spirits. Now, even many gods of the evil alignment had stopped this primitive way of sacrifice. Of course, the Queen of Spiders, Lolth, still occasionally performed blood sacrifice. Just like the drows who believed in the Queen of Spiders, these drows liked to fight among themselves. A city would be divided into 8 families, and then these families would fight among themselves. Until now, there was no drow kingdom in the Underdark. Even when they attacked the surface elves, they were spontaneously organized city by city. There was no hope of winning, but they still enjoyed it. On the altar, a priest who looked a little old had a cruel smile on his face. He held a dagger with a blood groove and came to the front of a captive. The captive seemed to be under the control of a spell because he didn't react at all. With a cold light, the captive's chest was directly cut open by the sharp dagger. Blood gushed out crazily and flowed along the rocks on the altar. The crowd below became very crazy. When the blood seeped into the surface of the altar, some kind of evil and strange power also appeared. The faces of the believers under the altar showed frenzied and intoxicated expressions. The leader of the priests raised his dagger and dug out a fist-sized heart that was still beating. The hot heart was carefully placed next to the altar. The priest did not stop, and then went to the second sacrifice. Blood sacrifice was a form that was difficult to satisfy the evil gods. If they could not provide a strong sacrifice, then they had to rely on numbers to please the evil gods. Often, a bloody sacrifice would last for a long time. Only when the evil gods were satisfied would they give power to the believers. If they were not satisfied, they would anger the evil gods. At that time, they would take the lives of the believers to make up for the sacrifice. Sulan looked in front of him. In his eyes, he could clearly see the rich blood-red light above the altar. Evil god. The evil god of chaos. Although Sulan could not be sure of the strength of this evil god, he was sure that it was the most chaotic and evil thing. I can't wait any longer. No matter if it was a demigod or a false god, they were all very dangerous to Sulan. However, that evil god was not here now. The prime material plane was not that easy to enter, and he could not let these people finish the sacrifice before making a move. After all, after the sacrifice, their strength would increase greatly, and that would be even more troublesome. All troops, raise your spirits. Group haste. Group enchantment weapon. Boost morale, advanced. Curse, reduces enemy's defense. Rays of light shone from Sullen's body, and then the barbarian guards were all covered. The barbarian guards' strength increased by a level. Their fighting spirit soared, and they rushed forward like a whirlwind. Charge. Whirlwind slash. Dozens of barbarian guards charged at the same time, erupting with an aura like a landslide. The exaggeratedly shaped axes in their hands instantly swept up a storm of attacks. The outermost followers did not even have time to react, and were directly beheaded on the spot. The moment Sulan used his spell, the leader of the priests had already sensed it. However, he never thought that Sulan would move so quickly, and that the barbarians would be so reckless, not giving them any time to react. Damn it, activate the warriors of darkness. A few spellcasters in long robes immediately used their spells. In a breath's time, a dozen figures covered in the aura of death rushed out from the corner of the hall. These figures were not slow, and they directly met the barbarians who were charging forward. However, in the face of the barbarians who had activated their berserk mode, these warriors of darkness were still forced to retreat despite their strength. Sulan followed the barbarians, and with a sweep of his purple dragon halberd, he directly beheaded an evil god follower that rushed forward, and then began his slaughter. Although Bladestorm was a sword saint's specialty, other melee classes could imitate it as well. For example, rangers could dual-wield their weapons and cast advanced haste. They could also perform a similar attack with perfect dual-wield. However, the damage was far less than a sword saint's. Another example was the Berserk Barbarian. They had about 50% of the power of Bladestorm, but it was not too difficult for Su Len. With his blitz talent, greater haste, and his proficiency in spears, as well as his powerful stamina, Su Len could easily achieve this state. Su Len's body was wrapped in lightning, and in the next second, he appeared in front of a priest. That priest did not even have time to cast a spell before he was killed by Su Len. The purple dragon halberd swept back and forth, quickly clearing out the surrounding warriors, and then directly pouncing on another priest wearing a mask. These priests had a strong negative aura, as well as some strange chaotic energy, which made Su Len very vigilant. They were the biggest threat to the barbarian guards. Corpses fell one after another like grass being cut down, and the evil god followers who had already reacted began to frantically counterattack. War roar. Roar. A deafening roar suddenly exploded. The space in the underground hall was limited, and in this environment, the power of war roar was even greater. Everyone felt their minds go blank for a moment. The barbarians were fine, as their constitution was high enough, and they quickly recovered, but the evil god followers were not so lucky. Half of them were killed by the roar just now. Chapter 329. Lightning Spear. Dazzling lightning appeared in Su Len's hand, and a spear completely condensed from lightning instantly flew out. Boom! The lightning exploded, and the priest on the altar who was still a little dizzy was instantly hit. This high-grade priest was electrocuted into a pile of charcoal before he could cast a spell. After killing a few high-grade priests, the outcome of the battle was basically determined. The remaining evil god followers could not make any waves at all. A few of them saw that the situation was hopeless and wanted to drag a few people down with them. Unfortunately, the difference in strength was too big, and they were directly cut into pieces by the giant axe on the spot. The battle ended quickly. Johnson, go check if anyone is still alive. Kill all of them. Don't take these evil god followers as prisoners. By the way, don't touch anything that looks strange. Record it down and someone will deal with it. After the battle, Su Len ordered people to start cleaning up the battlefield. As for getting information from these fanatics, Su Len did not have this idea at all. These people had been brainwashed, and it was not easy to pry open their mouths. At least, Su Len could not do it for the time being. Some of the things in the evil god's church were very strange. Many of them carried the power of the evil god. These things slowly seduced you. Whispers in your dreams were common, so the best way to deal with these things was to destroy them together. Wen stared at Su Len, dumbfounded. 2 Tier 4 priests, more than a dozen Tier 3 warriors, and dozens of Tier 1 and Tier 2 evil god followers. Such a powerful stronghold of the evil god's church was wiped out so easily. Was this still the evil god's church that stirred up trouble in the Southern Sea? Although many rumors and poems of bards proclaimed the strength of Northtown City, one heard more of it as a story. Who the hell would have thought that exaggeration in poems was not basic? Wen, go untie these people. Su Len saw that the rogue was still in a daze and directly called him over. Your Excellency, are you calling me? Wen, who came back to his senses, looked at Su Len with eyes full of awe. Is there anyone else called Wen? Go untie these people and ask them where they are from and how they were captured. Rogues were very good at this kind of interrogation, so it was very suitable for him to do this kind of thing. As for those straightforward barbarians, forget it. Okay. Wen went forward to rescue the humans who had been used as sacrifices. Just as Su Len and the others were cleaning up the battlefield, an evil force was gathering near the altar. In the hall, blood was flowing slowly like a stream. It was not only the blood of the sacrifices, but also the blood of the followers of the evil god that had been killed by Su Len and the others. The thick blood in the blood pool gradually condensed into a 3-meter-high blood cocoon. Such a big movement soon attracted Su Len's attention. In the blood pool, something like a sludge monster was constantly wriggling, and a vague human silhouette could be seen in the huge egg in the middle. What is this? Su Len looked at the monster in front of him. There were too many types of monsters in this world, and many of them were not even recorded in the wizard's records. Thunderstorm. Seeing the blood cocoon in front of him, Su Len directly summoned a ball of thunder and lightning and threw it over. Lightning flashed, and a lot of blood splattered, but the blood cocoon in the blood pool did not change at all. After the blood was blown up, it quickly recovered, just like the surface of the water. Immune to magic attacks? No, it was because there was too much blood at the scene. As long as the blood was not completely depleted, it would recover quickly. Looking at the blood pool, Su Luan immediately understood. Then, he used his weapon to attack. Similarly, the purple dragon halberd was like cutting through jelly. There was no resistance at all. Even when he attacked, a few blood arrows suddenly shot out from the blood pool to counterattack him. Su Len waved the purple dragon halberd gently and cut off the blood arrows. After some probing, he already knew that it was impossible to end the battle before it hatched. He could only wait for it to be completely born and then kill it. The blood cocoon grew very quickly. In just a few minutes, the entire blood pool was swallowed up by it. Soon, the blood cocoon hatched. Like a slime monster, the blood cocoon stretched out its hands, legs, and head. In the blink of an eye, it became a 3-meter-tall giant. The giant's entire body seemed to be made of blood. On its head, the facial features were very blurry. Only its mouth looked ferocious and terrifying. As soon as the blood giant appeared, it directly swung its fist at Su Len. Just by looking at the size of its fist, Su Len did not doubt its power at all. Evil God Avatar, Blood Demon Form, Level. Ability. Transformation, Divine Spell Attribute. Divinity, Divine Power Infusion. Su Len stepped lightly on the ground and instantly jumped back, dodging the attack. He also used the system to identify the monster in front of him. Boom! It looked like a ball of liquid, but when it hit the ground, spiderweb-like cracks appeared. Su Len retreated while checking the system's identification results. When he saw the system's information, Su Len's expression became much more serious. He never thought that this evil god would actually use divine power infusion to forcibly change its form and create an evil god avatar. Chaos Hammer. A divine spell flew directly at Su Len. Su Luan's body flashed with lightning, and the next second, he appeared behind the evil avatar. This kind of teleportation-like ability was the result of his explosiveness with the power of thunder and lightning. In fact, it was not a spatial skill. After dodging the attack, Su Len's purple dragon halberd carried powerful lightning and stabbed directly at the evil god avatar's back. Along with the dazzling lightning, the evil god avatar's body was directly penetrated by the purple dragon halberd. However, this kind of fatal wound on a normal person was completely ineffective against this monster. The wound quickly recovered to its original state. Other than the fact that its body seemed to have shrunk a little, there were no other changes. Just as Su Len was thinking about how to deal with this evil god avatar, the evil god avatar in front of him underwent a shocking change. It did not even turn around. A blurry face appeared behind its original head. Its 2 arms directly attacked Su Len. F***CK. The sudden attack instantly hit Su Len. Su Len only had time to block it with his purple dragon halberd before he was sent flying a few meters. This evil god avatar could actually change its form at will. It did not need to turn around at all. The front and back were completely the same. Su Len only felt a burning pain on his skin. A layer of the skin in front of his chest had been corroded. This evil god avatar's blood was highly corrosive. Without much time to think, Su Len twisted his body in midair. The tip of his foot kicked hard against the wall. His body abruptly changed direction and dodged the enemy's next attack. Thunder Territory. Dazzling lightning appeared in the hull. Su Len directly activated his Thunder Territory. Powerful lightning gathered on his body. The surrounding air flashed with lightning from time to time. Lightning Spear. Countless power of thunder and lightning quickly gathered in Su Luan's hands. This time, he did not use all the thunder and lightning to form a thunder spear. Instead, he combined the power of thunder and lightning with the purple dragon halberd. With the power of thunder and lightning, the purple dragon halberd was filled with a powerful pressure. The evil god avatar roared. Its explosive power instantly increased. It charged at Su Len at an astonishing speed. Facing the evil god avatar's charge, Su Len was not afraid. He waved the purple dragon halberd and met it head-on. Blood and lightning collided fiercely. The flickering lightning illuminated the entire underground cavern as if it was daytime. The splashing blood and lightning were like a beautiful blooming flower. Accompanied by an astonishing aura, they constantly clashed in the air. Rumble. A violent explosion sounded. When Su Len smashed the purple dragon halberd in his hand with infinite power, the evil god avatar's body immediately exploded violently. Blood splattered everywhere. The lightning and blood kept canceling out. A large amount of blood evaporated. The air was filled with a thick smell of blood. Blasphemous language. A very evil language rose from the bottom of Sullen's heart. The voice contained an extremely chaotic and evil power. A sharp pain came. Sullen's eyes were still cold. With strong resistance and talents like iron will, Sullen's resistance to this kind of ability was very high. He was not afraid of the enemy's attack at all. Although the evil god avatar was not the evil god's main body, it still had many of the evil god's abilities. For example, the evil god's force field. Under the protection of this force field, only high-level magic weapons could cause damage. A few barbarian warriors seemed to have found an opportunity. Their sharp axes flew out instantly. However, although these axes were well made, they were obviously ordinary items. They could not cause any damage to the evil god avatar at all. The axes were directly bounced off the evil god avatar's body and did not cause any damage. Su Len, who was in his best state, displayed strong combat power. The evil god avatar did not gain any advantage in the fierce battle. Instead, it was defeated by Su Len, who was skilled in martial arts. For a moment, the avatar became a size smaller. After all, the evil god was not the main body's general. The divine power it transmitted was limited. If this continued, Su Len was confident that he could completely exhaust it to death. After realizing that it could not kill Su Len, the evil god avatar instantly pounced on the barbarian warrior with a huge axe who attacked it just now. The evil god avatar with the ability to change was very fast. It arrived in front of the barbarian in an instant. Its huge fist turned into a sharp sword the moment it attacked and instantly pierced through the barbarian's chest. The barbarian's body was like a deflated balloon. The blood in his body was sucked out in an instant. Seeing this, Sullen's body flashed and immediately rushed up. The purple dragon halberd drew a cold light and instantly cut the blood sword in half. Unfortunately, it was too late. The barbarian had already turned into a dry corpse. Chapter 330. Damn it. The lightning in Sullen's eyes intensified when he saw the mummified corpse. The evil god's clone didn't bother with Su Len at all. After Su Len arrived, the evil god's clone rushed toward the nearest barbarian warrior. It was obvious that the evil god's clone wanted to use the barbarian's blood to replenish his energy. Sullen's expression changed. He instantly understood the evil god's clone's intention. Everyone, get out of here immediately. The barbarians heard the order and immediately retreated. Sullen's body flashed with lightning, and he appeared in front of the evil god's clone in the next second. He didn't dodge at all and directly crashed into the evil god's clone. Thunder roared and lightning filled the sky. Su Luen's body was forced to retreat several steps before coming to a stop. However, the evil god's avatar wasn't any better. Its body was completely enveloped by lightning, and its body made of blood became even smaller. There were many traces of corrosion on Sullen's body, but these traces quickly healed under his regeneration ability. It wouldn't take long for them to be completely healed. At this time, because of Sullen's obstruction, the evil god's clone lost the chance to kill more barbarians to replenish his energy. All the barbarians took this opportunity to retreat from the underground hall. Mystic Ice Slash. Looking at the liquid-like evil god's clone in front of him, Sullen's heart moved. A cold chill appeared in an instant, and in the next second, 3 ice blades rushed toward the evil god's clone that had just broken free from the lightning. The evil god's clone couldn't dodge in time and was hit by the 3 ice blades. At the moment of impact, ice crystals appeared on its body and quickly spread. In just a breath's time, half of the evil god's clone's body was frozen. Seeing that the skill was effective, Sullen's body moved and a powerful energy was instantly released. Then, a few mystic ice slashes were released consecutively. The evil god's clone's speed was greatly reduced after being frozen. After being hit by a few mystic ice slashes, its body was completely frozen. Sullen's body flashed and instantly appeared in front of the evil god's clone. The purple dragon halberd in his hand didn't stop at all. Under the dazzling lightning, he slashed at the evil god's clone. Bang! Blood-red ice crystals fluttered all over the sky. Under this powerful attack, the evil god's avatar was directly shattered into countless pieces of red ice crystals. Seeing this scene, Su Luan secretly breathed a sigh of relief. No, it's not dead. At this time, Su Luan suddenly realized that the system's clone didn't receive any EXP, which meant that the evil god's clone didn't die just now. At this moment, the ice crystals on the ground had melted, and countless drops of blood quickly gathered in the center. In the blink of an eye, the evil god's doppelganger appeared before them once more. It really has an immortal's body. Su Luan frowned and said, if the first time doesn't work, then the second time. I don't believe your divine power is endless. Seeing that the evil god's clone had just recovered, Sullen's body flashed and rushed up again. Although it was only an evil god's clone, it was impossible to kill it in this way. Su Luan didn't have any good ideas. He could only exhaust the enemy in front of him bit by bit. Facing Su Luan, the evil god's clone didn't have any advantages other than strength and regeneration. Its speed was inferior, and its control spells were basically ineffective. On the contrary, it was controlled by Sullen's spells. In this situation, it was nothing more than a guerrilla war. Now that the barbarians had retreated, Su Luan didn't have to fight it head-on. Thunder roared and lightning flashed in the underground hall. Su Luan, who had changed his fighting style, became more relaxed. The evil god's clone tried to rush out of the hall several times, but it was stopped by Su Luan. Its blood was constantly being consumed, and the evil god's clone became smaller and smaller. Thunderstorm spell. Mystic ice slash. 3-inch lightning shrouded the evil god's clone, and its body became slightly stiff. In the next second, a few mystic ice slashes were already prepared, and the evil god's clone was turned into an ice sculpture, which was then smashed into pieces by the purple dragon halberd. As a warrior and a part-time wizard, although Surin's original energy value was abundant, he couldn't hold on for much longer. However, the piece of tungsten steel he had equipped came in handy. The mana recovery effect of the tungsten steel could restore his energy at all times. Coupled with the mana recovery potion made by Hathaway, Surin could still hold on for a long time in this battle of attrition. The evil god's clone in front of him experienced what it meant to be bombarded by spells this time. Originally, the evil god's clone was very difficult to deal with when it turned into a slime-like form. Its recovery speed was fast, it had no vital points, and it was immune to most of the physical attacks. However, it was unlucky enough to meet Su Luan, who could break its energy field, so its defense was greatly reduced. In this battle of attrition, it was slowly being worn down by Su Luan. As time went on, the evil god's clone's body was not much stronger than Sullen's. At this point, its power was no longer as strong as Sullen's. It was completely suppressed. The evil god's clone kept roaring, but it couldn't change the situation at all. It's time to end this. Su Luan looked at the evil god's clone that was being destroyed and restored again. He gently waved the purple dragon halberd in his hand, and the lightning in the air suddenly surged. Thunder prison. Countless lightning bolts suddenly exploded, and the blue lightning power quickly gathered and completely wrapped around the evil god's clone. Countless lightning bolts kept exploding in that small space, and the evil god's clone was attacked by thousands of lightning bolts every second. The blood clone was shrinking at a speed visible to the naked eye. Boom! The dazzling lightning exploded, and the entire underground hall shook slightly. Thunder Prison exploded with powerful power, and the evil god's clone was completely destroyed in this attack. Ding! You have killed the evil god's clone. You have received 42,500 experience points. Target has divinity detected. Extracting target's divinity. Extraction successful. You have received 3 divinity points. Congratulations, host, you have successfully killed the evil god's clone. You have received 2 platinum treasure chests. You have received the item Luban Remnant Scroll, X1. Congratulations, host, you have successfully killed the evil god's clone. You have received 1 legendary skill point. The system's prompt sounded in his ears, and Sulen slowly breathed a sigh of relief. Then, he removed the Thunder Domain state. Next, Sulen didn't look at the other rewards. Instead, he prepared to absorb the 3 divinity points that he had just received. Divinity was a very special power. It was like the power of blood, but it was very difficult to integrate into the blood. The descendants of the gods were born with divinity points. This divinity was inherited from their parents, and divinity and divine power had to be condensed by themselves. Of course, they could also kill other creatures with divinity and divine power to take it. Sulen didn't plan to walk the path of the gods. This path wasn't easy. After becoming a god, even if your will was strong, you would still be affected by your divinity, and divinity. As a god, if your will wasn't strong enough, even your divinity might interfere with your thoughts. Among the gods in this situation, one of the more famous ones was Ceres, the cat and dance goddess. This goddess divinity was feline, sensual pleasure, and wandering. She also had wanderlust. She often liked to descend to the material plane to wander around and enjoy all kinds of pleasure. During the time of troubles, she was targeted by the dark goddess. Then, under the temptation and calculation of the dark goddess, she gradually began to experience all kinds of dark pleasure. If the goddess of love and beauty, Shuni, hadn't intervened in time at the critical moment, the dance goddess would have undoubtedly been controlled by the dark goddess and become her training puppet. Because of these factors, some powerful ancient gods resolutely gave up their divinity and chose to live in seclusion. The first god of death, Jurgal, and Gaia Mother did this. Jurgal, the god of death, was more thorough. He divided his divinity among 3 gods and created 3 powerful gods. At first, Jurgal was called the Lord of the End of all things. This was the final form of death. He divided his divinity into 3, so there was the god of strife, Ban, the god of the dead, Mirko, the god of murder, Baal. This action even directly led to the time of troubles. Gods had their own responsibilities. With the corresponding divinity, they would bear the corresponding responsibilities. For example, the god of death had to maintain the operation of the river Styx and receive and distribute souls. The god of light had to protect justice. The goddess of nature had to maintain the normal development of the natural world. Sulen didn't want to be bound by these, so he didn't intend to become a god. Divinity was also contaminated with various wills and spirits. Sulen had already experienced it when he first integrated divinity. In order to completely integrate divinity, the original spirit imprint in the divinity must be removed. Relaxing, Sulen adjusted his mind to the best state and then began to integrate divinity. At this moment, Sulen suddenly appeared in a world of blood. Countless distorted figures were constantly entangling him. Sulen frowned slightly. He was already mentally prepared for this situation. Lightning bloomed from Sulen's body and then killed all the distorted figures around him. Then, countless hideous monsters appeared in this space. Hellfire burned, and Sulen began to kill all kinds of monsters. At the same time, a figure hidden in the depths of the monsters suddenly launched a sneak attack. However, Sulen had already detected its movements. As soon as it made a move, it was nailed to the ground by a lightning spear. "I've been waiting for you." Su Len sneered as he looked at the shadow in front of him. You want to steal my power? You'll pay the price. The shadow kept struggling, but it didn't have any effect. If I can kill you once, I can kill you again, Su Len said with disdain. Then, another lightning strike completely scattered the shadow. I'll remember you. I curse you. With a flash of lightning, the shadow completely disappeared. However, just as the shadow disappeared, a mark appeared on Sullen's body. The curse of the evil god. It's really against me. Su Len looked at the mark and curled his lips. The most precious thing was the 3 points of divinity. There weren't many ways to obtain divinity. There were all kinds of divinity creatures, demons, abominations, and ancient evildoers, but the premise was that you could defeat them and kill them. With the addition of these 3 points of divinity, Su Len had already gathered 5 points of divinity. He was still 5 points away from the lowest level of demigod. Now, he had more divinity than most divine creatures. In addition to these divinity, killing the evil god's incarnation also gave him more than 40,000 experience points. In addition, 2 platinum treasure chests were dropped. This was the first time 2 platinum treasure chests had dropped from a monster. Su Len opened the storage space and chose to open the treasure chests. A gorgeous special effect flashed and the familiar sound of the system rang in his ears. Congratulations, host. You have opened the platinum treasure chest. You have obtained the item, Big Dipper Nectar X2. Congratulations, host. You have opened the platinum treasure chest. You have obtained the item, 9 Bulls and 2 Tigers Pills. After hearing the name of the item, Su Len immediately took out the 2 items. Su Len had already used the Big Dipper Nectar several times. This item could directly increase one's strength or vitality by 3 points. Sullen's strength had now reached 50 points, which was a critical point. If he wanted to increase it, he would need 3 attribute points to increase his strength by 1 point. He planned to continue increasing his vitality. 50 points of strength was already very high in the material plane. Only dragons and some giants could surpass Su Luen in strength. Moreover, the benefits of adding strength to constitution were also obvious. The most obvious one was having more HP and being able to resist attacks. The other bottle of 9 Bulls and 2 Tigers Pills was opened for the first time. This item was also only sold in the treasure pavilion in the game. The price was not cheap. Moreover, the treasure pavilion was completely random. If one was not fast enough, or if one was too far away, the treasure pavilion would disappear if they appeared frequently. 9 Bulls and 2 Tigers Pills, bottle carefully refined spiritual medicine using dozens of rare medicinal herbs and several natural treasures as the main ingredients. After use, 1 free attribute point will be increased. Note, 5 pills per bottle. Although 1 pill could only increase 1 attribute point, the effect was not as good as the Big Dipper Nectar and the Wisdom Leaf. However, it was still a free attribute point. Su Len could add it to his agility or charm. Now, the experience required to level up was too much. Moreover, each level only gave 2 free attribute points. If Su Len wanted to make up for his shortcomings, he had to rely on this. Without hesitation, Su Len consumed the Big Dipper Nectar and chose to increase his vitality. A slightly cold energy appeared in his body, and then it became extremely hot. Su Len only felt a tearing pain in his body and bones. It was as if countless ants were gnawing on his body. In just a moment, Su Len felt as if he had been in the past few years. His body was sweating profusely. After resting for a while, Su Len did not continue using it. He planned to go back and use it again after a period of time. If his attributes increased too much at once, it would affect his control of his body. After putting away the remaining 2 bottles, Su Len looked at the other item, the Luban Remnant Scroll. This was a severely damaged scroll. There were some symbols on it, and it looked like a tattered scroll. However, this was only on the surface. Su Len directly flipped through its attributes. Luban Remnant Scroll. This scroll contains a lot of information and knowledge about various machinery and woodworking. Unfortunately, due to the passage of time, it is incomplete. However, it still has some effects. After using it, it can speed up the research of machinery. Sulen casually put this Luban Remnant Scroll into the storage space. He planned to go to the Weapons Bureau when he returned and see the progress of the crossbow research. The last remaining legendary skill point was also very precious. Currently, legendary skill points could only be obtained by killing legendary enemies. The effect was also very powerful. It could be used to upgrade high-grade talents or skills to the legendary level. Of course, it could also upgrade skills below high grade by 1 level. However, doing so would be a complete waste. Sulen was a little hesitant. The talent that he could upgrade now was Advanced Regeneration. After upgrading, it could reach the legendary regeneration level. At this level of regeneration, he could already regrow broken limbs. As long as the heart and head were not damaged, other injuries would be healed. The other was Forbidden Magic. However, to upgrade the effect of Forbidden Magic, he needed 2 legendary skill points. He only had 1 now. After some hesitation, Sulen decided to keep this legendary skill point for the time being. He would wait until he accumulated more points to upgrade Forbidden Magic to the legendary level. The legendary Forbidden Magic could be used on legendary spellcasters. Its effect was to temporarily cut off the spellcaster's connection with the elemental energy of the outside world. If the spellcaster wanted to cast a spell, they could only use the mana stored in their body. Moreover, the mana consumption would increase exponentially. When casting a spell, the spellcaster would use their own mana to trigger the elemental energy of the outside world to form a resonance effect. Then, the spellcaster would cast the spell without using too much mana. However, after being Forbidden Magic, the spellcaster would need to provide all the mana to cast the spell. The mana of a legendary spellcaster was probably only enough to cast a level 9 spell. This skill could cripple most of the spellcaster's power. In the underground hall, the barbarian warriors were collecting the spoils of war. After dealing with the evil god believers and evil god avatars, the barbarian warriors who had just retreated returned. There were several other passages in the underground hall. These passages led to the storage room and the residences of some high-ranking members of the church. Although the evil gods' church looked like underground rats, they were actually very rich. The churches of the gods would abide by the rules of the game. The evil gods' church did not have so many concerns. There was once a relatively remote noble who died in an accident, leaving behind only a widow and an orphan. Then, some relatives appeared out of nowhere and used various methods to control the mother and son. Then, they carried out all kinds of activities. It was not until a high-ranking member of the church passed by that they were discovered. This place had become the lair of an evil god's church. In the end, when the evil god's church was destroyed, the nobles and the church paid a heavy price. Several high-ranking members of the evil god's church were still able to escape with a large amount of wealth. These evil god churches would often tempt some foolish nobles, such as prolonging their lives, gaining power, or promising to revive their loved ones. Many nobles felt that they could control these churches, but they didn't know that these nobles were just lambs waiting to be slaughtered in the eyes of these evil god churches. After a while, a barbarian warrior came in front of Sulen and bowed. "Your Excellency, all the spoils of war have been cleared out. Do you want to take a look?" "Very good. Did you find any strange items?" Sulen turned and glanced at him. The barbarian warrior immediately replied, "I found a few statues and some strange decorations." "Take me to see them." Sulen followed the barbarian warrior to another passage. Soon, he saw some items piled up on the ground. As soon as he approached, he felt a twisted evil power. You're tuning into the A Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.